Can I have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board for June 6, 2016. Tonight we have 3 matters for public hearing that are on the agenda that have been previously continued, and we do have a new matter under new business. The first matter on the agenda, which was continued from our April 21st meeting, was 42 Wellman Street, which is a site plan review. This matter has been before us 2 previous times, and the applicant asked for a peer review in regards to the traffic matter. As a result of that, we did get the traffic peer review back, and the applicant and the city departments are looking over that, and they've requested more time to go through the peer review. We did receive a letter from the lawyers from the applicants, Attorney George Elides and George Theodoro. They're requesting the matter be continued to June 20th, so they could work with the city departments for more time. What's the request of the board for the requesting continue to 6/20?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to grant the request to continue the matter until the planning board meeting of June 20th, and that the applicant would comply with signing a waiver for the allotted time in which a decision needs to be made.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. That matter has been continued to 6/20. The next matter, I want to take the matter out of order if there's no problems with the planning board members for the Chancellor Street project, since that was continued on 5/2, where the other matter was continued on 5/16. So if I could address the 374, 386 Chelmsford Street, it's a site plan review. The application by George, on that, site plan review for special permit approval for existing upgrade to existing Domino's to create an additional parking spaces and new drive-through window. The proposed project is located in the regional retail zoning district and requires site plan review under section 11.4 from the planning board and a special permit from the Lowell zoning board of appeals. The matter was continued last time. The 2 questions we had was, came up the question was whether the applicant wanted to propose a easement, and he indicated he wanted to speak with council before he'd consider doing that. And the other question came up with the shared driveway. As a result of that, the matter was referred to the law department. The law department did concur that it would be okay to use the shared driveway, and the applicant has furnished us with a easement. Having said all that, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
For the record, James Flood, 509 Rogers Street, all representing Jeff Schemblecker. I wasn't here before, but he did contact me after the last meeting regarding the issue of an easement, and he's more than willing to do it. So I've prepared and I submitted an easement today. Evidently, it has been reviewed by the law department, and they've indicated in this situation that is permitted. Jeff told me there was one other issue too, and that had to do with landscaping, and he's more than willing to work with the DPD staff to come up with an appropriate landscape plan for that neighborhood. So.
And,
that was, I think those were the issues that were left.
and Joe, you gave us that communication to the law department. You said the law department did have a chance to look over the easement this afternoon when Attorney Flood forwarded over?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any other concerns from planning staff then, Joe?
I think the only other item was the traffic circulation to be counterclockwise. Does that sound right, Nick?
Yes, Chairman. The only other question I had was regarding access management on that stretch of Chelmsford Street. As I'm sure you're all aware, there's a lot of fast food restaurants that have, 2 curb cuts, one for in, one for out, and that just creates a lot of havoc in that section of the street. What I had suggested was making, instead of having both driveways be in and out, have one in, one out, just to...
And then I think we had that the fire department requested to be the other way, right, Joe? I think we had a conflict between Nick and the fire department. They were saying they
Right.
wanted one way for safety, and Nick was saying it makes better circulation the other way.
Right, so that was the other outstanding item.
We put a fire lane in, too.
Yeah.
And I think it's 24 feet wide, I think it is, isn't
Um,
it? Or 20 feet wide, 24 feet, the roadway, so I would think there's plenty of room to move in. He just didn't want 2-way coming out on that side, especially with the location of the house next door, too, for sight view, so.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, Attorney
Nope.
Flood?
Well, that was it. That's my understanding that those were your concerns.
Okay. All right, Anybody here this evening want to speak in regards to this project? Anybody want to speak in favor on the Chelmsford Street matter? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, anybody want to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Any of the board members have any questions, concerns, or comments?
I just wanted to reiterate a point from last time, their proposal on the sidewalks. I wanted to make sure, they had, if I recall correctly, had agreed last time, they'll go from lot line to lot line with the concrete sidewalk. What they're showing on the plan is replacement of the concrete sidewalk just in front of the building. There is a small area over on the other side of that driveway, near the fire lane, which it's either asphalt now or it's concrete, but it's in poor condition. I would just like to include a condition that there will be concrete sidewalk up to city standards from lot line to lot line.
That shouldn't be a problem. I think he's spending money there. He wants to make it a nice-looking project. I think that's not a problem, Joe.
Any other board members, any comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Fischett?
if I may, just for clarification to staff, to Joe, I haven't seen anything to the contrary, the fire department's original opinion on this. So is it still, we still in a situation where I understand from Nick's perspective with the circulation of the site, but I think one of the main parts of site plan review is the safety issues along the exiting and entering in within the site, and fire safety, obviously. So if the fire department, what's the fire department's position still on this?
Yeah, I believe it's still for the two-way traffic, and maybe my recollection is a little faulty, but I thought the agreement was to have the entrance side still two-way, and then the exit side was just going to be exit only, but that was my recollection.
And the fire department would be okay with that?
Okay with that, yeah.
Okay, so the entrance...
That would continue to be two-way, so you come in and out on the entrance side, and then the exit side, where I believe the fire lane is, that would be exit only.
So on the southern side, or the southern entrance?
The entrance is on the southern side, southerly side of the lot.
Yeah, I believe you show that as being an entrance and an exit,
Entrance, exit,
and
right.
then the northern one being exit
Exit
only.
only, right.
And that's, okay, so
So to keep that configuration.
keep that configuration, okay. And then, Counsel, you've said that your applicant is willing to work with DPD to finalize the landscaping plan. I
Yeah,
think
what's appropriate for the neighborhood, and I think DPD will understand that, so, not a problem.
And did the dumpster get moved at all? We had talked about the dumpster for snow storage, or was that there's some discussion on that at our prior meeting. I mean, was that any discussion?
No,
any
Jeff,
further
whether
on
the
that?
dumpster was moved? I think you told me it was, but.
We cut the curb.
Just state your name for the record, please, sir. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Jeff Schembeckler. I'm the owner of 374 to 386 Chelmsford Street. We cut a curb so there was better access to the dumpster. Was that the issue?
Yes, okay. Well, it was actually for the snow storage to the rear, because that open space behind the dumpster was actually being considered snow storage.
That's right, yeah, shifting the dumpster pad.
Well, let me just say this. I mean, I'm amenable to locating the dumpster in any position back there so that it helps with snow storage. I don't know, looking at this plan, I don't know that it's been moved.
Right. I mean, what do you usually use to clear the site? It's not a Bobcat, is it? It's a plow, I would imagine, it comes through the site and...
Yes, we just push it to the back of the site.
Right. So I really think, Joe, if DPD could work with the applicant on that, I think it just needs to...
Sure.
That just needs to, I mean, I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on reconfiguring that, but I think that needs to be moved slightly to
Yeah, we
be able
can
to
do that with the
access that for
applicant.
snow storage, yeah, okay, all right. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any of the board members, any comments? Or-
I have one
Mr. Lockhart?
question. Looking at my notes from May 3rd, there was a question about the use of porous pavement, and for the applicant to provide a maintenance plan for that. That shouldn't be an issue. Okay.
Has to be cleaned out every year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it should be part of the,
Yeah, if you have a condition in it, that's not a problem.
yeah, that's it. All right, that's fine, yeah.
Anybody else?
That's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah, on this question about the access management and the southern access being one-way or two-way, it's a legitimately tough call, but in this case, they're taking over an adjacent lot, which could have itself been developed as an entirely separate business with its own entrance and exit. And so the fact that it's being rather combined into one will itself mitigate the traffic impacts, will have less traffic impacts than if it had been two separate entrances. And where we've already got one that's down to one way, just speaking my opinion, that kind of tips the balance for me over towards the fire department opinion of the two-way, the southern entrance being two-way rather than one-way being an acceptable solution. This one is a close call, though.
So, what do we?
Any further comments or questions? If not, what's the wish of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the site plan with the following conditions. The sidewalks on Chelmsford Street from one lot line to the other to be constructed to city standards. The applicant to provide a maintenance plan for the porous pavement. Applicant to work with DPD to finalize landscaping plan and location of the dumpster. And although submitted, I would want to incorporate into the conditions the site circulation with the southern entrance being a two-way entrance and the northern form of egress being a one-way exit from the property. And adopting the easement for the access of the abutting property.
I'll second the motion.
Motion, excuse me. Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank
Good
you
luck
very
and
much. Thank you.
Moving along on the agenda, the next matter is 1 Merrimack Plaza, a site plan review. This was continued from our May 16th meeting. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing regarding the application of Vision Development for the approval of a site plan under section 11.4 application, a zoning variance and a special permit from which had to go before the zoning board of appeals. Excuse me. Any other relief that is required for a 205,000 square foot student housing building to be located at 1 Merrimack Plaza. In addition to the new building, the proposal includes the demolition of an existing commercial structure and the construction of loading areas, pedestrian facilities, landscaping, and associated utilities. The site is located in the downtown mixed-use zoning district. As indicated, this matter was previously before us on May 16th and was continued to tonight matter to work with some of the city departments. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's William Martin, attorney with offices at 21 George Street in Lowell. Since we were here a few years ago, we have been proceeding with the permitting process. We have appeared before the Board of Appeals. We had modified the plans somewhat based on the original feedback we got from this hearing at the board. A week ago, the board voted to grant us a special permit for the use private dorm use, and also a variance to reduce the number of loading bays from the required 4 down to 3. After that, we've continued to have discussions with staff concerning the issues raised by the board and various department heads at the last meeting. We do think we've made significant progress on addressing all of those issues, and happy to go through them with you tonight, answer any questions you may have, and we're optimistic that perhaps we could even have approval of the site plan this evening. So if it's, I'll do whatever the board desires, but one way we could proceed is to have Evan Watson from Prime Engineering to take you through the revisions that we've made in response to the back and forth with staff and the concerns raised here at the last hearing.
Yeah, that'd be fine, Attorney Martin. Yeah, if you want to do the revisions, and then after that, we can go through the city department comments, would that be fine?
Whatever your pleasure. Yeah, we'll do this first, and then we'll...
Yeah, do the revisions first, and then we can address any department comments, okay? All right.
Thank you. Just one, and the architect, Dan Benoit, is here too, and the elevations have been slightly revised too. So.
Okay, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Evan Watson from Prime Engineering, located in Lakeville, Massachusetts. As Bill said, we have submitted a revised set of plans dated the 23rd of May, and we've talked to the different departments. We've received input, and we've also submitted these plans to the Zoning Board of Appeals, received a special permit and a variance. So a couple of the notable changes where the original set of plans showed 2 loading spaces here on the turnaround area, and those have since been eliminated, and we received a variance to have fewer loading spaces along the side. We've added pedestrian crosswalks. We've straightened out the alley so that it no longer comes out on the adjacent property. We've added some striping and things of this nature. We still have the same existing conditions plan. What is this, demolition plan? We've added the construction entrance. We've added silt fence around the perimeter, and we've added some, oh, thanks, Dan. Some dewatering areas and things that are necessary for the construction from comments that we received. On our layout plan, we've added some more detail. We've created this area here flush with the pavement, so the sidewalk is flush. We've added some bollards so that this makes a great drop-off area. Not too much from the layout other than developing the turnaround so that it comes straight back to the access area, and then really defining a lot of the pedestrian ways. We've also increased the width between these 2 handicap spaces to be 12 feet wide, so that can accommodate a van unloading and to still accommodate any pedestrian traffic that might be walking through there. The grading and drainage plan is relatively the same. We haven't adjusted the grading or the drainage. Again, we've talked about the different stormwater treatment, and it seems to be well received the way that we have it, treating the stormwater that takes water from the traffic areas. This is our utilities plan, so we've been able to provide a lot more detail than what was presented on the original plan. We've since fully designed the sewer. By moving over the line here, we need less manholes. We can tie directly into the sewer line. We've also met with the water department on site and been in talks with their consultant. And we've shown on the plan that essentially the maximum that we would need would be a 20-inch pipe. So right now there's an existing 20-inch pipe that runs across the site to a box that gets reduced to 16-inch that comes out into the road. So what we're proposing is to cut it, add a hydrant, and bring the 20 back to where it joined the 16, and that would be the worst case scenario as far as our side is concerned. So we're willing to do that. We added a hydrant on each side to accommodate the fire department, and we've added both a domestic service and a fire protection service. Yeah, that's fine. The landscape plan hasn't changed. And then the last three sheets, the city engineer asked that we use the City of Lowell standard details to kind of bolster our details, so she was able to provide those to us, and we put them directly onto the plan. So that's the last couple of sheets there. So those are the changes to the plan. This graphic, again, illustrates what was done on the changes. The highlighted orange pieces here was what I presented to the zoning boards as far as the loading. Then after that, we did, actually, I think it was on Friday, we had a meeting with teleconference with planning staff to go over some of the open issues. I'd actually written a response to most of them, but she was kind enough to summarize what the outstanding issues were in her memorandum dated today. So I don't know if you have a copy of that. I brought copies that I can hand out.
Which one are you referring to? We have several here. The one from,
June 6th to the planning board from Judy Timon.
okay, yep, let's start with that one. Okay. Okay, yep, we have that one. We received that one today.
Okay, and again, this basically summarizes the comments that we received essentially last week.
Can I get a paper copy?
Okay, I'm sorry, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, yep, okay, I get the one, yep, thank you, okay, yeah,
Easier than my phone.
yeah. No, I got a copy here. So I know Judy in her response also incorporated the fire department response as the first one, correct?
That's right.
And you have no problem with the fire department approval? It's
They're
based on the following conditions, and they highlighted two?
That's right. We would be able to do that.
The structural reinforcement of the bridge, one is, the applicant shall provide a plan showing modifications in or structural reinforcements of the bridge over the Merrimack Raceway to allow the access for the fire apparatus exceeding 73,000 pounds. And the other one, the applicant shall provide a paved surface for the fire department access road moving along the building frontage facing French Street. The pavement shall be a minimum of 20 feet. So you okay with those?
We can, yes.
And then I know, let's see, then she starts with transportation access, and I know then we have another letter from Traffic Department, and Nick is here as well. So do you want to, when you start with the transportation access stuff, we'll go through that then, if you don't mind.
Sure. So let's see. She says, the city's ordinance is requiring 219 spaces, and we're providing 48 in Front Street, 2 handicap in front of the building, and 169 spaces in the garage. And they're saying that per the Mass Access Board regulation, that if you have 219 spaces, then you'll need 7 handicap accessible. So she's saying that in addition to the 2 spaces in front of the building, there are 2 spaces on the lot in Front Street, and the remaining is provided an AR garage. All handicap space should be as close to the building as possible. If the existing space in the garage and the parking lot are not as close to the building as desirable, the applicant should consider providing additional spaces located closer to the building. The applicant has proposed a circular roadway in front of the building will provide drop-off and pickup for shuttle service and for handicap access, as well as delivery and loading. We should provide details as to how the area will be used for all 3 purposes. So we're talking about this area here. We have a lot of space here. So obviously if there's a pizza delivery person, kind of live parking here to make a delivery, we don't want them blocking the area for a handicap drop-off. So we can provide signage here that can demarcate an area for just handicap drop-off zone. We've stated that they are in negotiations with Boot Mills LLC to allow pedestrian and emergency vehicle access to the site from French Street. Access shall include appropriate crossing over the trolley tracks and connection to the sidewalks on French Street. Work be coordinated with MPS. If the site access is not provided, applicant shall provide an alternative emergency access for the site. So in our talks with the fire department, we've said that we can bring their apparatus this way along this building, and this is the bridge that they discussed, the wooden bridge that the trolley rides over now, and then out this zone here. It appears to be a city street, but it's actually owned by the Boot Mills. So we want to talk to them about what they would like for pedestrian access. And because this does cross the tracks, it might make sense to put a pedestrian access across that, have it striped and have a sign there. So we can certainly do that.
Okay.
Plan shows crosswalks to be provided connecting Father Morset Boulevard and French Street across the 43-foot wide access to the site. We should work with MPS and the owner of the access way to provide pedestrian access, including sidewalks and crosswalks. So in the initial submission, we showed that this area here was owned by Princeton Plaza, LLC, and that this easement was benefiting us. So in talks with the abutter Princeton Plaza, we've seen that this property is actually not owned by them. It's owned by Merrimack Properties. And Merrimack Properties is actually a different entity than Lowell 5 Bank, but it's the same owner. So we have a commitment from them to allow any use across this property. So we'll make sure that, that all the access that we have, the pedestrian access ways, et cetera, will be provided.
Hold on a second. Does that refer to the proposed access along the wall of the parking garage?
No.
No. Okay.
Sorry. Thanks.
It's the access out to French Street, Father Morset Boulevard.
Okay.
That's right. So when they refer to the 43-foot wide right-of-way, that's this zone right here.
Okay.
It's our main access to the property. So that's what she was referring to here, or he was. We can take the regular board here, thanks. We will provide the appropriate number of handicap spaces as close to the building as required. Handicap accessible pickup drop-off zone shall be designated within the turnaround in the front of the building. Again, so ADA standard says that if your close as possible space is not conveniently located to the door, that you have some type of drop-off so that the person that needs access can be dropped off here and the car can be parked in the handicap spot. Conversely, if they park in one of the garages, they can be picked up by the shuttle, and the shuttle can then bring them over here and drop them off. The applicant shall provide documentation from the parking department demonstrating that 169 parking spaces are available and dedicated to the residents of the dormitory. 2 of those spaces shall be handicap accessible. So we can provide that.
So we submitted that letter with our initial filing.
Okay.
All sidewalks and crosswalks should be ADA compliant. We will do so. And the applicant shall obtain the proper easements and contracts from all appropriate properties, including but not limited to National Park Service, to provide crosswalks, sidewalks, and trolley track crossings. The applicant shall provide to the city for the approval all copies of any such agreements. No problem. We can, we'll search those out and we'll provide them to you. Do you want me to continue through the list? Okay.
Yeah, might as well go right through that list, correct.
Okay. So the next says,
Excuse me, Chairman?
Yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt. One of my comments didn't make it on the list.
Okay,
Would it be okay if I
sure, go ahead.
addressed it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think it's just in the compilation of the comments, it just didn't make it on there. But, so, one of my main concerns is that this development is geared towards UMass Lowell students. And of course, the students will be doing a lot of walking to the off-site parking and the facilities at the Songus Arena. Also, Hall Street leads directly to a lot of the, the gym and the cafeterias in the campus area. So one of my main concerns was how the students are going to get there when they come out the front door of the dormitory here. There's that street that goes directly to the front of the garage. And I think a lot of the students will be walking that way. So my main concerns were security and safety. I talked to the parking director, and he'd be very willing, he said, to pay for all the electricity and the maintenance of lighting installed on the side of the garage if the developer was to install lighting so that it's well illuminated during the night. And also, my other concern was there's no sidewalks on that access road. Of course, that's also owned by the same subsidiary of the Lowell 5 that owns the 43-foot access way. So if they're getting permission to do improvements there, maybe they can get permission to do improvements, put in a sidewalk and put in lighting, maybe even one of those, UMass Lowell blue lights, just because right there, on the side of the garage, on the north side of the garage, it's very secluded, dark, it's just for safety and security. That's the recommendation that I had that didn't quite make it on there. Thank you.
So we did discuss with staff the, putting the lighting up, and we're certainly willing to do that, install the lighting on the garage. We'll need to work with the city to get the right to do that. But I don't think that roadway is the same entity as the Lowell 5. I believe that's Princeton Properties property. And we don't presently have the right to improve anything there. But certainly for the lighting, security, that sort of thing, we have the ability, if that's what the city wants us to do, that we're certainly willing to commit to do that as a condition.
Anything further you want to say, Nick? No, okay. All right, I appreciate that, okay. All right, thank you. So let's go back where we were talking about, talking about the water and utilities. There's a note there about the 16-inch water main, is that what we discussed when you first started at the beginning?
The next topic actually was the engineer's comment.
Well, I still have a page and a half left.
It's very small. It's right before that, right?
Okay,
Right
okay,
before
I'm
water
sorry.
and utilities, it says stormwater.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed
No
that.
problem.
I apologize.
So she's saying that the plan is subject for final approval by the city engineer. She had a couple comments referred to some showing compliance with stormwater regulations,
Yeah.
which we can certainly comply with. One of the things we'll have to do is, if we're adding impervious area to accommodate the fire chief, is demonstrate that we don't have an increase in impervious area from what was there currently today. So we'll have to incorporate some pervious pavement type design there. We'll have to also try and make this emergency fire access way look pedestrian friendly instead of vehicle friendly. So while we're at it, putting in the impervious pavement here, we'll probably end up doing a little bit in the hardscape plaza interior. So there'll be a little bit of revision that she'll need to look at to make sure that we have compliance, but it shouldn't be a problem at all. So then the water and utilities. So she's describing what's on the site. There's an existing 16-inch water main. Maybe we can bring up the utility plan.
That the one you talked briefly about a little while ago? Between relocating that if you have to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. You're talking about it going to the rear, but if it's not, you can tie it off and come back to the front, right?
That's correct. So, right.
It's talking about a T tied to southern-west corner to provide the, okay.
Right, so when we first looked at the site, there was no record of the water line in the city records of this coming through here. We found it in our own records when the bank was built. that there was a 20-inch line that came around and came this way. Through our research, we saw that that was a line that was installed as part of the original boot mills, and that there were other lines that actually went to the west, a 16-inch line. And there was a canal that went this way, and there was other large mill buildings on that side. Since that time, that site has been lowered by about 15 feet. The canal has been filled, or actually, I think it's been excavated below the canal. And I'm confident that that pipe has been removed. However, it is prudent to actually ensure that it has been removed. So he's asking that we verify that by digging a test pit and seeing that that's not there anymore. And we will commit to do that with him. That's no problem.
Yeah, because one of the comments on that was saying if it's not there, the footprint may be required to be changed. I'm sure you don't want to consider doing that at this point, right?
We wouldn't want to do that, no, but what it would entail is essentially modification of this basement area here. So if the unlikely event came that there was a water pipe that was serviced this way, we would do what it takes to make sure that it wasn't a problem. And if it meant modifying the building footprint or whatnot, obviously we would come back and talk to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
So he has a couple other conditions, such as we'll provide the gates, the hydrants, the materials. We'll provide a utility easement to allow the city of Lowell access to said infrastructure. That will provide a final plan showing all proposed water lines, including relocated lines, gates, tie-ins, et cetera, approved by an engineer and subject to approval by the water department. So that makes sense for sure. Existing 21 shall be relocated, the location to be approved by the water department, and an application to provide documentation that will hold the city of Lowell harmless for any damage to the applicant's property that may occur due to a failure of this water main. He was concerned just because there's obviously a 20-inch water main on private property near a building. They didn't want to have any harm come their way, so we can grant that.
Okay, thank you.
And the applicant shall determine the 16-inch water main, I think we just discussed that.
Yeah.
And the applicant shall file an amended site plan review application, if we have to modify anything, so we can do that.
Okay.
And then additional comments, these are essentially by the planner, Judy. Provide a plan that shows erosion control, location of construction entrance, and detail for construction entrance. She does show that we have few areas for snow storage. And we have indicated that excess snow may have to be removed from the site. So obviously we can't have snow blocking the way. There's quite a few people here, so we'll have to bring somebody in and have it hauled away, so.
Can't put it in the canal either.
No, and that's the other thing, right? It seems like the logical place to put it, but we definitely wouldn't have that. In fact, we would make sure people don't do that.
Okay.
Trolley guy wires will need to be relocated from their existing location, the poles at the southwest corner of the new building, to other location. Applicant shall determine the location and obtain permission to relocate the wires. So we're in the process of working with them to relocate the wires that are on the property here. We'll work with the adjacent property owners regarding the placement of the sign currently located at the entrance. New location of the sign as design shall be reviewed and approved by the Historic Commission. No problem, we can do that. And applicant shall enter an agreement with the city of Lowell stating that if the property were to be purchased by a nonprofit entity, new owners shall provide payment in lieu of taxes, and that approval of the site plan review application by planning board will prohibit the conversion, the use of proposed building from that student housing to residential housing. Yeah, so I think, Bill, you want to discuss those?
If I could take those in reverse order, the last condition there about that it stays and maintains as student housing is perfectly acceptable to us. That's what we intend to do. That's what our company does. And it's what we think is the best use for this project and for the long-term future. So we don't have an issue with that. I think the special permit that you're going to grant talks about that in any event. So I'm not sure that needs to be a special condition, although we don't object to it, because I think the special purpose for student housing is only that, and if we were going to change it, we'd have to come back for a modification of that, so.
Because of the special permit request, okay.
Right. So, so that one is not an issue. The notion of agreeing to provide a payment in lieu of taxes just presents real problems with our ability to finance this project. I can tell you, Vision Development has built other student buildings like this in other places. We've told you about that at our initial presentation. We've actually sold some of those properties too. Those properties to date have all been sold to other for-profit developers. There is a sort of market for this type of housing. It's a national market. There are some big players, and there are people that are for-profit tax-paying entities that look to acquire these from time to time. However, to agree to a condition like this really hinders our ability to finance it. We don't think our lenders would agree to that, and we don't think it's allowed for in the conditions for this special permit grant. So, that presents a real problem for us if the board sees fit to impose that condition. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to go forward and get this project financed. I would point out also, since we met last, and I can submit a letter, the Lowell plan has gone on record in support of our project, so we have support of the business community, the Board of Appeals. I think we've worked well with the city staff. We're going to Historic next week, and they've been enthusiastically behind this project. In fact, some of the design changes Dan made were in consultation with Steve Stoll at the Historic Board. So that's where we are. I'm happy to answer other questions or hear what others have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Counsel. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to the public to see if anybody else here this evening wants to speak. Anybody want to speak in favor of this project?
Hello, my name is Sandra McNamara. I'm president of Centerville Community Coalition and also a retired task force inspector. And this city is so overwhelmed with overcrowding. This is the godsend and the best project I've seen in a long time to come to our city to help us with the overcrowding. And again, as a retired task force inspector, you can't believe the overcrowding that takes place, and dangerously as well. So I think it's the best thing for the city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to speak in favor of the project? In favor? In favor? Nobody else? Anybody want to speak in opposition?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jeff Brown. I'm with Princeton Properties. Our corporate address is 1115 Westford Street, Lowell. We are the owners of the adjacent River Place Towers apartment complex, 448 units. I was trying to follow the discussion about this passageway, this 43-foot passageway, and I think there's been a bit of a semantics there. Yes, that property is owned by Merrimack Properties. They are a subsidiary of Lowell 5, and they can grant whatever permissions they feel that they can grant. But we are the owners of the property under a multi-year ground lease, I believe more than 50 years in duration, financed by governmental bonds and securities. So, we control the site. To say that someone is going to give away our land that we control, that is heavily securitized, I just don't understand how the statement can be made. So all I can say in opposition is Princeton has not been consulted as to whether they are willing to grant the 43-foot access. We have not been consulted at all. I don't believe that even if we wanted to grant the access, we could do so without the permission of all of our lenders and mortgage holders, which would be a monumental task. So I didn't quite hear how the 43 feet plays into traffic design, or perhaps it's pedestrian walking routes, but we haven't been asked to be a part of it, haven't been asked to grant permission for it, haven't had any discussions with anybody about it, and at that point we would object to any use of that property as a pedestrian access way. Our property is almost immediately adjacent to what is going to be now the traffic circle for this project. So one of our primary concerns is the traffic circulation, the congestion that's going to happen there with both the vehicles from the dormitory site and our vehicles. So we had our traffic engineer, Jeff Dirk of Vanessa and Associates, out there on the site to take a look at the site, and Jeff will prepare a full report to the extent that it's necessary. But Jeff's initial comments are the separation between the access to River Place Towers and the connector roadway along the north side of the parking garage will create multiple conflict points with no traffic control and result in inherent safety conditions. So what Jeff is saying is as their traffic circles around that turnaround area, our traffic is coming out at the same angle. They've now decided to make that angle straight, worsening the congestion point. We are now locating traffic for 431 students, as I remember, or the buses that service them, and the traffic access point for our 448 residents into one central point. And we don't believe it's appropriately designed, safely designed, and we have a serious concern about that. Jeff Dirk also raised the concerns that in a similar fashion, as I understand the applicant's proposal, they have 431 students. The primary mechanism for transporting them to and from school is to have shuttle buses. I believe at the Zoning Board of Appeals, the applicant said the shuttle buses would be 24 people to a shuttle bus. They would run them on the hour. So in my simple calculation, that would clear, 24 people in 1 hour in a 3-hour span, which I assume most kids are taking classes. 7 to 9 p.m. You're clearing 72 kids. So I don't understand how you can do this with one shuttle bus. If you double it up, you're in that 3-hour span when most kids are taking classes. And I understand a few kids may not be taking classes that early in the morning, but if you add 2 buses, you're clearing 144 students. You still have over 300 students still in the dormitory. So if you add 3 shuttle buses, you're clearing 216 kids in a 3-hour period. Still almost half the dorm is full. It's clear that you cannot transport the number of students without causing significant traffic congestion and queuing, backing up, because of the short distance from French Street to that access point and our traffic coming out from the other side. This queuing factor to clear these students is unsafe in our opinion and unsafe in our traffic engineer's opinion. So that is our primary concern. That it's clear that this could be obviously repositioned farther over. It would require the reduction in the size of the building. I'm a developer too. I've been on this side of the podium many, many hundreds of times, so no one likes to do that. I understand. But if you want to have a safe traffic route, that's how it needs to be done. Also, if you have snow plowing, you're now going to snow plow this, and I understand at some point they said, well, if the snow gets too big, we're going to bring in trucks and haul it away. Well, what are we going to do when it actually snows that morning? The plows come in, tighten down this queuing area, tighten down this already congested traffic point. It's going to be next to impossible for our tenants to get out and go where they need to go, and next to impossible for the students in these shuttle buses to go where they need to go. So we have a serious concern about the safety of that traffic design, and we believe that that concern can be further supported by a full traffic study by our traffic engineer, Jeff Dirk of Vanessa and Associates. So that's our primary concern. The other concern that I raised last time is the issue of parking, and as I understand it, they will have 48 parking spots on the site. They will have 100 parking spots at Art Garage. They need approximately 220 parking spots to meet their requirements under the zoning regulations. So they have these multiple off-site locations to facilitate the parking. And my read of the regulation, 6.1.6 says, in the DMU's district, all parking requirements may be met by leasing spaces in publicly owned off-street facilities located within 1,500 feet of the entrance to the site. That's what the bylaw says. Of all the parking spaces that they have off-site, not one of them complies with that 1,500-foot requirement, because it also says measured along a traveled way from the dormitory served. So, travel route, AOT, 1,584 feet, narrowly misses the mark. The other site, the Downs parking building, 0.6 miles, 3,100 feet, and that's the closest. The next one's 4,700 feet, and one is 0.8. Lowell Locks is 0.8 miles away, so that's roughly 4,500 feet from the entrance. So I question how you can comply with that provision of the parking code when none of the parking is 1,500 feet from the entrance to the property as required. I think it's infeasible that you're going to ask students to now walk almost up to a mile or somehow get almost up to a mile to where their parking is. Over 40% of their parking is located more than a half a mile away from the site. How are these kids supposed to get there? I think it's easy to say, well, in September, it's a pleasant walk, it's a half a mile. What's that walk in January? What's that walk in February? And I just don't understand how that's feasible, how it's safe for these kids to be forced to undertake that in order to facilitate the parking. So the obvious answer becomes, if they're not going to want to walk a half a mile, they're going to find their way into our back parking lot, which now creates a problem for us. Also, the 220 parking spot measurement is for the residents. That doesn't include any visitor parking. So on a Friday night, I don't think it's hard to figure out where the visitors are going to be parking. They're going to try to get around the gate, go down back into our parking lot, and we have a serious concern about that. And again, the solution is rather simple. You make the building smaller, you extend parking onto the site, you reduce off-site parking. Again, I know that's what every developer doesn't want to hear, but you put more parking on the site and you prevent these safety hazards. So that's these are our two primary concerns: parking and the traffic congestion around the traffic circle there, the queuing that's going to come from these shuttle buses, which I don't understand. I understand last time I was here before the planning board that the applicant was supposed to submit a transportation plan or mitigation plan or something like that. I wasn't able to pick that plan up on the website. If you post these to the website, I wasn't able to see it. But I know what their presentation was before the ZBA. It's a 24-person shuttle bus once an hour. I don't think that's going to clear these kids out in order to get to class. The last issue I'd like to raise is, I think there was some suggestion about a condition that it always remain a dormitory use or something to do with a dormitory use. I don't think it's news to the people here in the room about Perkins Loft transaction announced over the weekend, adding 700 more beds to UMass Lowell. So with 700 more beds, I'm not sure where the capacity comes that's going to facilitate this development, but that's the developer's financial decision, and he'll take it on his own. But our concern is that it's going to end up just like the Perkins Loft situation. To the extent you restrict it to dormitory, there's no restriction against it being sold to UMass Lowell. as I understand it, perhaps you can come back before the board, and I haven't seen the precise language of the condition, but I think you have to certainly be concerned that this doesn't become the next Perkins Law. So I appreciate your time, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak at this time? Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay. At this time, I'll turn it over to the board members. Anybody have any comments, questions?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, I'll start with Mr. Lockhart.
There seems to be a lot of issues surrounding the turnaround there by the dorm for picking up students and just general traffic flow. I want, on Nick's May 31st memo, 1 Merrimack Plaza Private Dorms, there's a statement here on the second page under ownership status of 43-foot wide row. The second bullet reads, the traffic circle in front of the dormitory entrance is shown as straddling the property lines. An easement agreement with Princeton Properties LLC may be needed. Is there an issue there regarding property lines? I don't understand the basis for that statement. And I think
We don't think there's an issue there, Mr. Luck. I mean, I don't want to...
all right, it's what it states, and I just want to
I think what I was referring to...
make sure we're clear.
Nick wants to respond, okay?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead, Nick.
I think what I was referring to was in the plans. Yeah, so if you look at, if you look at any of the plans that show the proposed work, it shows the turnaround area, the physical work being done, comes over the property line. Yeah, so there's a property line there, and you're showing improvements on the other side of it.
Yeah, that's right. Again, initially, because the tax maps, the city's tax maps, actually shows Princeton Properties as owning this in this geometry. In the last meeting, the representative of Princeton Properties provided us with a plan which actually showed they do not own that. It's owned by Merrimack Properties. I actually drew a little figure here I can show you. So again, this didn't affect the property line that was shown on the plan of the actual property where the proposed work is being. It's just this property here. So you can see that this is owned by the Merrimack property, which is owned by the same entity as the bank, and that this 43-foot wide easement here is providing easement and access to the bank property over the Merrimack property, which is also owned by the bank. So it's almost as if the easement isn't really there. You know what I mean? So that, I think, might clear that issue.
So, if I could, Mr. Chairman, so if you can envision Dutton Street, right, where Dutton Street was historically, went past the Euro Club at the time, now Cobblestones, the Masonic Lodge, right, that was the front, that fronted to Dutton Street, where all those columns are. And Dutton Street actually ran the whole length of the canal, all along the Merrimack Canal, and crossed French Street, right into this area, at least on the ground. Now, the public portion of Dutton Street never crossed over, okay, it never crossed over French Street. But it exists on the ground in the 1924 Atlas and the 1936 Atlas. And in the deed in to the bank, it contains language that you have 43-foot right-of-way extending past French Street as Dutton Street would be extended. So that's where that 43-foot wide easement comes from. So that has existed at least since the 20s. And then these properties were separated into different ownerships. So you had, parties with easements to that back piece, but as it exists now on the ground, the same party controls it. So even though there is an easement to the back piece, the person who owns the front piece is the same person who owns the back piece, the bank who is going to be selling to us. So we're confident in that ownership, and certainly confident that we have the right to use that 43-foot wide right-of-way that's existed. At least I only took it back to the 20s, but it may have existed long before that even.
So just for clarification, Counselor, so who originally granted the easement? Who has granted the easement?
That's a good question.
Originally, who granted for that piece of land? Because, when that was developing and, Union National Bank built that, I remember when those towers were built, but they all operated off of, who granted that?
So this was all, at one point, Merrimack Manufacturing Company.
Okay.
Was
all one site, yep.
Yeah, was the mill owner.
Yep.
And of the historic mill on that site, as well as a much larger area.
Right. But then, again, urban renewal, Union National built that. At what point where did that easement get placed, and what is everybody operating off of today? What easement is everybody operating off of today to access that
Well,
site?
I don't think there's a lot of respect for those historic easements. I think it's sort of coexisted for a long time with two owners. One comes in, goes left, one comes in, goes right. And I think that's worked well, and without the easements as they exist on plans really be existing on the ground.
So when Princeton Properties purchased that property, they didn't,
There may be an easement to use it, and I haven't looked for that.
Okay.
I don't doubt that perhaps one exists, but I don't see that they don't own it in fee.
Right.
Where at least the city assessors records give a reference to their ground lease that Mr. Brown talked about. That ground lease does not include that red parcel.
Okay. Which was originally part of Dutton Street, is what you're saying,
Right,
which was
right.
part of city property.
It was always a private street. I don't
was
think
always a private street?
Well, that end of it.
Okay.
That end of it.
Okay.
I didn't find any evidence that it was public.
The reference to Dutton Street on the plan, that was a little surveyor speak, if you will. There was not a plan which showed the actual ties, the mathematical ties where the easement was located on the property. Instead, it referred to the extension of Dutton Street across the way. So where our surveyor is, certifying us the location of that easement, he's saying, I didn't find math that ties it to this property, but it's the extension of the public Dutton Street across. So that's how the location was determined. So that's what that note, I think 7 was.
I have one other. No, generally, I'm in favor of your project. I think it's a good thing for the city of Lowell. But there's a lot of issues, as Mr. Brown has pointed out, around that circle and how that loading and unloading of students is going to work. Can you go into a little bit more detail how you foresee that to work and justify any safety issues that surrounding that? Just give us some more detail as to how that will work.
Yeah, so currently,
And the quantity and the numbers of students and the frequency of visits by the bus.
yeah, I can
things
speak
like
to
that, you know?
the layout, the geometry. Maybe, Bill, you might have some more information as to the actual.
Yeah, so I guess all I can point to is our experience in other projects, right? So we've run the 24-passenger van in buildings at other schools of similar size, and it's worked fine. We think on occasion at peak demands we might have to add a second van, but that's never really been an issue for us. Also, ignoring what exists today, which is, there were well over 100 employees that worked in that building at the Lowell 5 bank. All those car trips are eliminated now. So those people in and out all day, function just fine the way it was. We think we're actually going to improve the situation over there. we're going to reduce the number of car trips in, and we're just going to have van service. Perhaps we run them on the hour, but there may be need and peak demand. If we need to add more, we'll add more. It's kind of a hard thing to predict in advance, but I can tell you that's what's worked out in our other projects, and we think it's going to take cars off of there that currently travel there. So, and I think that the Board of Appeals found that rationale persuasive in their deliberation.
And as far as the geometry, again, speaking in the current condition, right now the pavement width isn't very well defined through here. It kind of comes this way and sweeps this way as well. So there's not a very good defined way of travel. If you actually, sometimes before the meetings, I'll wait here and I can see a vehicle might come in here, follow the yellow line around the trolley, and then decide that they need to actually go left. So there's a lot of confusion there. So what we want to do is stripe this so that it makes it clear to the vehicles as they come up. They know which direction to go. We've added some signage here about the one-way sign for entrance, do not enter signs here, and the cars would essentially come around. We provide a stop sign. I've set the stop sign back enough so that you can see any traffic that's coming down this alley. You can clearly see down this way, and this person would then have the right-of-way as they came out, so you'd be able to see anybody that came through this section here. And the amount of traffic and the speed that we're talking about, you know, it's not a if this were a roadway intersection, I would feel like that would be an unsafe maneuver. But considering the people that are coming through here, they're at a stop. This is a relatively narrow area where people are going slow. This is a gated exit, and again, we provide enough signage, and we're striping things to try and narrow it and really define the actual way of travel to reduce the options for people, if you will, because the less options people have, the safer things can be.
Okay, I don't have any more questions, Mr. Chairman. I think we need some more definition and data surrounding that, what you're describing. But other than that, I don't have any more.
Thank you, Mr. Lockhart. Okay. Mr. Fischett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To council's view, and I have a tendency to agree in the sense that, and I keep referencing Union National because that's where I started my banking career 36 years ago, and I actually drove to that location about 4 times a day, and there was a very active branch, the trust department, comptrollers. There was actually more people there than when the Lowell 5 housed that, and Fred C. Church. Plus, there was an active branch with a drive-through, and you had the towers there. Ayotte Garage wasn't there. You had the high school. Everybody parked there. That front lot, we towed more cars out of that lot. Actually, this is a huge improvement from what existed at that point. And really, as it exists today, there's no definition to that entrance. And defining that certainly will help. The speed bumps that Princeton Properties has, just when you go beyond those gates, obviously the cars that live there, you know those are there, you slow down. Even when you're coming out, you don't have enough time to accelerate. You hit the speed bump, you have the gates. So there's some traffic mitigation that's taking place there right now on the Princeton properties. And I think what's being proposed here, and I'd like to see a little bit more, as Mr. Lockhart said, maybe a little bit more definition of what we're doing over there, but I think that that's a tremendous improvement. What I would like, Counselor, is if you could elaborate a little on Mr. Brown had indicated, Attorney Brown had indicated that regarding the parking, and then getting back to the technical issue of the parking situation here, and if you could kind of respond to that regarding the parking that's available in the City of Lowell's letter, and perhaps if you can give some insight as to your application of this, and perhaps even defer to Nick after you've given some insight as to how you view this.
So, sure, I mean, I guess, if the AOT garage doesn't qualify as within 1,500 feet of this site, I'm at a loss, because I don't, so I think that stretches credibility. I do think the city has some issues in the garages right now. A number of them are undergoing renovation. So there are people being relocated in groups all throughout the garage system. This is what the city was able to provide us today. The Board of Appeals found that that was going to be sufficient. And so I think we comply with the spirit of the bylaw here, and to the extent we may need to shift cars from more distant garages to the AOT, or even the one on John Street. I think that's something that's possible. It's just not possible now with the construction program that the city is undertaking with respect to renovation of the garages.
Nick, I just want to get your thoughts on that as well, please.
Yes, sir. I think the argument the Princeton property representative is making, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I think what he's saying is from the entrance of the dormitory to the entrance of the AOT garage, which is actually on the front, if the traveled way is down the 43-foot easement, down Front Street, up, so if you take the circuitous way around to the front of the entrance, that's over 1,500 feet. I think that's what his argument is.
I don't think it is.
I mean, I think Mr. Martin's point is fair when it's picking too fine a line at AOT. I think it's fine. It's 1584. I think it meets the spirit of the bylaw. I have no argument with that. My argument is that the remaining parking, over 40% of that parking is over a half a mile away. That's not meeting the spirit of the bylaw. I agree. This is a fine tune.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not bent out of shape about AOT. I have 500 parking spaces. They have 42 on the site. They still need 80 more. 80 of those parking spaces are over half a mile away. That's not meeting the spirit of the bylaw.
So my point is that college students aren't going to follow a sign. If you tell them, take the long way around, college students aren't going to do that. They're going to walk down that paved walkway. So, I think the attorneys are arguing points, but in reality, I think the college students are just going to walk right down that roadway, because there's a UMass Lowell shuttle service right there. So if you walk down that roadway, there's literally a UMass Lowell shuttle service with a shelter. They're going to walk there, take that shuttle. I think they're going to walk that way to get to the AOT. I think they're going to walk that way to get to the school. So I think, we can.
And there's a door there, too. There's a door in the back of the garage. And I think there's a door at the other end of the dorm that takes you to John Street, too.
And I agree with the AOT garage, and I guess on the John Street garage, Nick, do we have any idea what the distance is to the John Street garage and the possibility of shifting some of that parking to the John Street garage?
Yeah, it's within 1,500. Yes. But
It's probably about 1,100 feet from the dormitory door location to the John Street location, if you're talking about going down that driveway, down Front Street, and
They're
then
pretty straight
over to-
hit, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
This is all assuming this additional pedestrian access across the.
I'd even go from that point. I went from the other entrance that we're talking, going down the 43-foot right away.
Oh, okay. Okay, and so if we assume that, because it does show there is this other door on the east side of the site, unless I'm misunderstanding, it looks like there's one. And then now we're talking about a second pedestrian crossing over the tracks and over the canal and coming out onto Front Street. Is that
Right, it would be even closer. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to remember this point because I'm going to bring it up later as we talk about the handicap spaces.
Is there, is there any possibility, have you had any discussions, Nick or Joe, with the parking director? And Councilor May's reference to some shifting around that's going on right now, but is it possible to actually allocate some parking spots from the John Street garage? Because currently, I don't see any from the John Street garage, right? Or am I missing something? Oh, is that,
That's Downs.
the Downs, yeah, I'm sorry.
Downs.
I'm an old timer, I guess now. But the Downs parking garage, 25, is there any way they increase?
What about the lower lot by the Songus Center? The lower
Well, I think
lot?
we're,
We looked at that?
I believe I think like Lot E down there behind the
Yeah,
Songs.
behind,
Yeah, I think that's UMass
Right of
whole
it,
property.
down
yeah.
I'm not sure.
quite a few spaces in there.
Again, I think the parking director could probably
Yeah, he's the.
tell you more about where he wants to, distribute parking. I can tell you that, the parking garages are getting full
Right,
with all this residential development that we're doing, and we keep putting in residential into the parking garages. They are
right.
starting to get full. So I think what he's trying to do is make sure that there's enough space available for, people that come to visit the city, to
Sure.
work, to shop.
Yeah, I can absolutely appreciate that. Now, and then also in these dorms, we have a tendency to constantly think of UMass Lowell, but you also can house students going to Middlesex Community College as well, is that correct?
Yes, if Middlesex students want to live there, we would certainly take them.
And I could see a lot of those students actually walking to Middlesex from that location, but,
Yeah.
okay. And just to Mr. Brown, it certainly would have been helpful to have Jeffrey Dirk's report for the meeting. Is he putting together a report, or has he?
Oh, that's what we're gonna say.
Development is up, which means all the traffic engineers busy. But we work with Vanessa and Associates for many, many of our developments. We've done development all in the winter. Jeff is putting together a report, it's highlighted some of these traffic concerns. I think the one thing I would note to clarify Mr. Martin's comment is, I might have misunderstood the easements. The 43-foot easement.
If you could use the microphone, please, I'm sorry. Yeah.
The 43-foot easement in the middle of what used to be Dutton Street, I assume. I don't think there's any argument there that that's a common easement shared by the parties. I don't have any qualms with that. I heard discussion about Merrimack Properties granting a pedestrian access easement along the A-Out garage, and it appeared to me the conversation was that somehow Merrimack Properties had assented to that easement as some pedestrian access route. When we control the property, yes, you can say Merrimack Properties or Lowell 5 does own the land. We own the land rights through our lease. So I just wanted to clarify, and I wanted to be fair to Mr. Martin and his development people that I might have misunderstood that 43-foot easement. I do understand it now that I see on the plan. We agree, we share that. What we don't agree with is that we've granted any rights along the access route where there was discussion about putting some lighting and signing and pavement and sidewalks. That's our land. I don't believe we've given up any rights to it, but I just wanted to clarify the position in fairness to them.
And I believe, Council, you've acknowledged,
That's
you
what I said, we'd
That's
hang
exactly
some
what you
lights on the
said.
garage, but we
Right,
didn't
exactly what
control
you
anything
said.
else.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what you said, you'd put lighting, but you don't control for a sidewalk, so I understood
Right,
that,
right.
yeah, thank you. To, Mr. Watson, is that correct? Can you again, can you expand on the striping that you're talking about? I mean, you mentioned that, we've used we've used striping very effectively in other parts of the city with some fairly controversial developments that have made a difference as to providing actually traffic mitigation because it more clearly defined entrance and egress, so.
Right, so you can see on the photograph, there's the yellow line here that's indicating not to park along the trolley tracks. And then the pavement kind of sweeps around in this direction. So I'll use my marker and highlight this here. So we can highlight the actual entrance this way without modification of the pavement, because the pavement does go right up to the trolley tracks. So we will be having a conversation with the National Park Service as to upgrades to their system here and the poles that we were going to move. And so during those conversations, it was going to be what was best suited for them in the area between this stripe and this trolley mark. If they want it to remain pavement, this can be striped so that it really defines this entrance through here. This is actually an island like this. So if they wanted to not have pavement there, then this could be a curb also to define that width.
Now, are you looking at providing any striping so that we have a right-hand lane and a left-hand lane?
Yep, and then, good comment. This is, I have indicated here a double yellow line. So there'll be a double yellow line here. But right now, there's none. It's just a big open sea of pavement there. So we've gone from kind of 2.5 to 2 3/4 lanes to 2 well-defined lanes that come through here. We can take the striping and kind of turn it a little bit this way, and that creates this movement here. And when you come out, you see that there's a double yellow line that makes you want to go straight. And we've actually, we'll change this radius so that it discourages people from actually making this right this way. So as you come out, you're directed, we'll remove this fillet, so this is straight, and you'll come straight back out to French Street. And it would actually, right now, or the previous, people could come right through here. So now people that come to the property will be directed back.
I was gonna say, I did that exact movement. Matter of fact, I parked where I wasn't supposed to. The trolley came by. I thought I was gonna hit my car, but it made it by there. And then when I came out, I actually followed a car going through that access road right behind the garage, and I could do it with ease. But and that would be crucial, is to extend some sort of curbing or something that would prevent anybody doing that loop being able to take a right and go and access that.
Yeah, we wouldn't
that would be a
wanna-
huge improvement from what's there right now.
Yeah, I agree. We wouldn't extend it beyond the limit of the curbing there now, because there is again,
The ability for them
Right.
they make a pretty sharp turn there, actually.
yeah, but because we've pulled this back, and when you come in, to make this turn, you would actually have to go on the other side and come around. So it really encourages you to come straight down.
It should.
Again, we couldn't physically prevent it, but it's, it wouldn't feel right to go that way.
But if that could be looked at, even with Nick, because I suspect even a Jeffrey Dirk would come up with a recommendation we've done that. We've actually physically made it pretty difficult for somebody to take a left-hand turn or right-hand turn. I just think that would be the ultimate way. Again, we talked about, people take the path of least resistance. So I think if you could, I'm sure with all the engineering minds working on the project, you can come up with something on that.
Yeah, I'd actually look forward to working with Nick and making sure that we have something that's amenable to everybody.
I mean, again, it's hard for anybody sitting here that didn't see this when it was in its heyday with Union National and everything going on over there. And it was, quite frankly, it was just an awful lot of activity going on there, and it was not clearly defined. And this is just a huge improvement. And we can't forget, we're not directing the cars into here. This is going to be drop-off, pick-up. The parking's going to be in that front lot and in the parking garages. So we're really not directing a lot of cars there. And the shuttles, there are a couple of locations where the shuttles can pick students up, not just at this location, just as was described, right where the Songus Arena is. I mean, that's a very close location. Am I correct, Counselor? Is it?
Our shuttle's going to pick up, drop off here. The university runs a shuttle at the arena. There's a bus
At the arena,
stop right
correct,
there.
yeah, so that's what I'm saying. And so from that perspective, I think that some students may just as soon, you know, from a timing perspective, may even go to that location. So I think there's a couple of relief valves there that I'm compelled to feel that would be sufficient. Okay, that's all I have at the moment, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shett. Yeah. Mr. Boyle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there is some more transportation and traffic planning that needs to be done here. And I think it needs, quite a bit of it needs to be done cooperatively between Princeton Properties and the applicant. They're sharing a driveway, they're gonna be neighbors. If they haven't been talking already, I think they need to start talking. I think what would be ideal, as a matter of fact, would be to have some sort of a summit. Perhaps there's somebody from the city who could host it, between Princeton Properties, this applicant, as well as the parking authority, to talk about the 43-foot entrance and what's happening there and how it's going to be designed, making sure everybody's concerns are taken into account in how that's going to be designed. I also think Joe is inarguably right. Those college kids are going to walk where they're going to walk. And what that means is that they're going to be walking on that alley north of the parking garage to get to campus or to get to the university shuttle bus. As a matter of fact, Mr. Brown, I think you want them to. I think the more kids that are walking that route, and the easier it is for them to walk that route, the fewer cars are going to be coming in and out of this area, because pedestrian and public transit will be more convenient. And I think it would be very much in your interests and in your tenants, your residents' interests, if they were not walking down the middle of your paved drive lane. We're instead taken off of that paved drive lane on a walkway. So yeah, I think that there's a lot more cooperation and a lot more communication could be happening here that could solve some of these problems in a mutually advantageous win-win type of situation.
I'd be happy to work and bring Jeff Dirk with us. With city staff, the developer, and put our heads together.
If I know Nick, he's eager to get his hands on that, on your traffic engineer's report.
We've had 2 meetings already. We're certainly willing to try and work out some of these issues with Princeton. But for us, you know, to have our permits contingent on satisfying every need of Princeton just doesn't work for us. I mean, people have schedules. He spoke to how busy the traffic engineers are. If this project is going to move forward, we need to get it approved. We need to start construction, and we can work out these things. We can have things subject to city staff approval in the end, but they have spoken in opposition to our project. They opposed us at the Board of Appeals. So I'm always willing to meet, and you're right, usually there is a solution, but not always. So I'm not sure we're going to get to a solution, and frankly, the delay would have the same effect as just stopping the project. Delay is equivalent to denial here.
Yeah, the point well taken. Keeping in mind that that is sort of a sliding scale. There's delay, and then there's delay.
Well, this has to be, if it doesn't open September, if you miss it by a week, you miss it by a year. So.
Sir, if you cut the microphone, please, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
And identify yourself for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Rick Schaefer, owner of Vision Properties, and student housing is very time sensitive. Okay, you don't miss in student housing by a week or two, you miss by a year, right? So, no, we're at a very critical point here. Now, I've had 3 meetings, attempted meetings with Princeton Properties, and the owner has not given me the courtesy of showing up to any of them. Now, I've met with some of his staff, but that doesn't do me any good. I need a decision maker to sit down with, right? 3 times.
Right.
So it's not that we have not tried to reach out to Princeton Properties. Development has to be a win-win for everybody, city, the developer, abutting neighbors. I think, Mr. Martin, we met with one of the owners of the Boot Mill property. I sat down with him for an hour or so. We talked through the project. He gave us a very nice endorsement letter. 3 meetings with Princeton Properties, and I still don't know what they want. You know, if somebody tells me what they want, I can work towards that. But until the owner wants to show his face and sit down with me, after 3 meetings, he decided not to show up. And I'm sure everybody's busy, but these are scheduled meetings. So I've met with his staff. I've not had the courtesy from him, nor I've had the ability to sit down with a decision maker. Staff doesn't do me any good. Okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, point taken, point understood. I would still like to see a process get started.
It's ongoing.
And I think that rather than simply bilateral meetings between the 2 neighbors, that also bringing in the parking authority and perhaps having the meetings hosted by somebody could possibly facilitate things. Because I would like to, I feel like a lot of these things are connected. The amount of traffic volume utilizing this and how much of a hassle it's going to be is directly connected to how much of the trips from this dorm are going to be pedestrian trips versus vehicular trips. That's going to be connected to what the pedestrian infrastructure is going to be like and where it's going to be. Again, I'd just like to reiterate, I think that good communication and cooperation could leave everybody happier in this. I would hope somebody from the city can take a leadership role in knocking some heads together here. I wanted to get to this handicapped parking issue. There is a door on the northeast corner of the parking garage. Is it a handicapped accessible door? Does anyone know? Don't know. Okay. The proper location of these handicap spaces, we want them as close to entrances as possible, obviously. It occurs to me that, looking at the design, that corner of the parking garage on the proper grade, on the grade right to the entrance, is extremely close to front doors, to the main front door. That might be the best place for the handicap spaces if that can work. There's the 2 here that are in the circle, and then there are 2 more that are shown on the French Street lot. But looking at that French Street lot and the route that they would take to get to that front door, that's actually a lot longer along the road than it is just looking on the map. Where there is this other entrance on the near the southeast corner of the building, is that actually an entrance, or is that just like an emergency exit?
This is the entrance here. So are you referring to this area here?
Yes.
So the entrance, Dan, what's that door right there? Yes. What's that? Is that an entrance or is that just an emergency? If we have security on it, it could be an entrance. Yeah, so Dan's saying if we could put the security fob on that, it could be a standard act.
Okay, if, now that you're proposing this additional pedestrian crossing there, it's possible that northeast corner of the French Street lot could actually be the most convenient pedestrian access, although that then depends on the surface you're providing for that pedestrian crossing.
Right. Actually, right now, on the curb line of this road here, there's 2 spaces, public. I'm not sure if they're public or if they belong to Boot Mills, but there's handicap signs there also. The back side of this lot is elevated from the road, but the front of the lot here is at the same grade as French Street.
Okay.
So that is a good recommendation that we could have an accessible route from a handicap space here that could reach that door.
Okay. I don't want to, I try to make a habit of not doing design planning from the seat here at the meeting, but I think that the way the pedestrian spaces are laid out now is not ideal, and that we could do better. Couple of other, with these options in mind, it might be possible to get to a really good
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from you is that, you see that I put 2 spaces here. Obviously, it'd be more convenient to have them for other uses possibly, but it's against the law. We need to have, if we provide parking spaces here, they have to be accessible handicap spaces. So that's why we've done that here. And again, we're just trying to, looking at this space was the easiest spot, but there's certainly other options available to access these other, and we're open to that, no problem. I think if we work together with the city's traffic engineer, that makes total sense.
Excellent, good, I'd like to see that. Mr. Brown, I have a question. Your driveway that comes up into their circle,
Yes?
okay, is that one-way or two-way?
It's, if I understand your question correctly, you enter to the right and exit to the left, so two-way, I believe.
Okay, okay, I know that there is another entrance to your parking from from Cox Circle, from up there, so I thought maybe you had one in and one out, no?
Not in that area.
Okay, okay, so that is two-way. So if that is two-way, then there are people entering there. They will be, okay, so I've been thinking of this in terms of a rotary almost, but now it's not actually going to be a rotary. You'll have people taking that left turn, right?
So the traffic movement would be to come to the dormitory site. You'd come down the road and you could turn right.
Yep.
And then you could leave back to French Street.
Yep.
To access the Princeton property,
Yep.
you would come along the new painted yellow line, past our circle, and then into, I'll highlight it.
Yep.
This is their gated entrance here. So a vehicle would come this way and would enter here, and then when they leave, they could exit this way or exit down the alley. So these traffic movements here are independent of what this is here. It's not what you were thinking where it's a circle in this way. There's a physical barrier here.
Again, that doesn't, it strikes me that that might not be ideal traffic planning, and that it's something that could benefit from a little more cooperation and discussion. Okay. Okay, that was what I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Mr. Malavit?
Yeah, I think that the access road is a whole other issue, and that the developer is showing strategically where pedestrian flow is going by the numbers. They have a circulation system. The traffic is going to the building and from the building. That access road is boy, it would be nice to do something with that access road, but it's somebody else's property. I don't think it should be tied to this development at all. Right now, I think this project is in pretty good stead. I think it would be nice, and I agree with Joe, I think that this could be a meeting of the minds to deal with that access road, but not now. Probably parallel to the development of this project. It would be nice to have an agreement on a different use a pedestrian and vehicular use to that access road, but to me, that was always built as a fire lane, basically for fire department to get into that housing development. I don't think the housing development uses that as entrance and exit to the people who live in that building. I don't know if they use that as an entrance and exit. I think it was primarily put there as requirements by the fire department. I'm only saying that because I was involved in the early urban renewal, and I thought that was one of the requirements when the MB Towers was built, which is now Riverfront, or Riverview. I think there's a fire access more than there's anything else. And it has to remain open, so therefore pedestrians are going to walk down there, as Nick said. It's a point of least, and I don't know how you're going to stop them because you can't block that off. But I think it's separate from the development that we're seeing here tonight. It would be a nice add-on, but I think they've adequately addressed how the pedestrian circulation is to move and how the vehicular circulation is to move in a pretty safe manner. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Bob. Ms. Nasevsky?
I think, you know, the concerns of staff and the memoranda that we got today has been pretty well addressed. I just want to clarify, you believe that that 16-inch and 20-inch water main is not going to impede the siting of the building?
That's right.
Okay, that issue is, one way or the other, is resolved, or
Yeah,
will be?
when we have appropriate manpower to actually excavate there in a safe way, we'll do it. And if it shows that it's an issue and it requires us to modify this edge of the building to get the pipe around, we'll certainly let you guys know and modify the permit.
Okay, great. And, you know, I think all the other issues have been addressed by the other members of the board and the applicant, and I you know, think the conditions have been satisfied to my liking.
Thank you. I just have one or two comments. I think most of them have been addressed either by staff or board members. I know last time when we were here, we didn't have the management plan for the dorms, and that has been submitted, which talks about how many, who the property manager will be, who will be on site, and what the hours of operation will be, how many residence assistants will be there, what the security will be. Let me see. It talked about the conduct policy in the community liaison. In our transportation summary here, it said that, so here said that the pickup and drop-off will be every 30 minutes. Is that correct? Because I think this gentleman said it was every hour at the ZBA, but this is telling us it's every 30 minutes. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, if you remember correctly, when I spoke about this initially at the first meeting, every one of these projects is different. You know, we did a project at Shippensburg University in Pennsylvania, small state school. It was a 300-bed facility. We ran a shuttle there.
Right.
None of the kids would take the shuttle. They looked at it like it was a stigma that they were riding a bus to school. Wake Forest University, which is 4 times the cost to go to Shippensburg, they thought it was their private chauffeur. Kid could, 10 minutes his class runs late, he's calling the manager saying, hey, can you send a shuttle for me? Mm-hmm. So, you know, what we propose, okay, is a shuttle, and we run a loop on the hour. I have not done a survey right now because we want to be able to hit all the campuses. I don't know how long that loop is going to take. I don't know if it's going to be 1 shuttle or 2 shuttles. Basically, the residents will dictate that. Whatever our need is, we'll facilitate it. Right now, it would be probably on a half hour, I would say.
I do recall what you indicated about the other 2 places, from last time we were here, and that's why we didn't have this plan, and under our zoning regs, we have to have this plan or we can't approve the site. So I'm just saying that, I heard that it was indicated the ZBA was every hour, so here we have a commitment to you that it's gonna be every 30 minutes. I just want to make that clear, correct? Because that's what's been submitted to us in black and white in writing.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be every 30 minutes,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So if it changes, then that has to come back before the board. The only
Okay.
question I do have on this is, I understand that, the hours will be a little different during the academic season. They have set up and on the holiday schedule and the Christmas schedule, I get that, that'll fall on the Saturday schedule. So I have no problem with that. I just want to indicate that this is something that we didn't have last time, which we needed to make sure the site plan was sufficient.
Thank you,
And
sir.
the only other thing is, I know you said you're gonna try to work it out with the summer schedule, which will be determined how they need it, UMass Lowell. And then once you have their summer schedule worked out, you can give us an update on that. But I just want to make sure that we received this, and this was what we required last time, which was one of our requirements, okay? So I appreciate that, I'm glad we have it. So, this is the goal, is to have it every 30 minutes. I understand that once you start it running, it can change, I get that. If you run every 30 minutes and it's empty seats on the bus, you're not gonna have the bus sitting out every 30 minutes just running gas. I get that part. So we need a plan to go from, and then obviously, the plans can fluctuate depending on the need, I understand that, but I just wanted to make sure that, we got the plan that we needed, and the main thing is, who's on site, how many residence assistants, how many security guards, who the property manager is, that's consistent with our guidelines, so I appreciate having that, thank you. The only other question is, when we went through all the comments that we got from the senior planner, Judy, pretty sure everything was basically okayed by either Mr. Martin or by this gentleman over here. The only thing that we had the question on, which was, and that Judy indicated, Billy, when you said you take this one between the house and residence, and the other one would be is to purchase a nonprofit entity, the owner shall provide a payment in lieu of taxes equivalent to the applicable property tax. I understand your answer is it's very hard to finance a project like that, so I'm just going to ask my representative on the planning board here, Mr. Fischett, who's in the business of doing that, what his opinion is on that, if you don't mind me asking you, Mr. Fischett. I know you've been involved in doing this lending for a long period of time, and if you could provide just some of your experience as a lender to help answer that question for us as planning board members.
Mr. Chairman, whenever you put restrictions on the possible resale of a property, obviously it limits the market, and it limits the ability to liquidate a property, and certainly it could hinder the ability of the lender to have to liquidate the property, and even for the client to find a potential buyer for the property. So from that perspective, certainly it's not something that's looked on favorably to encumber that and have it have the potential sale be hindered by a restriction of selling the property. So that's a legitimate concern.
Okay. And I know, I'm sure Mr. Martin has looked at that and said, I don't think it's covered under our site plan regulations either, to say, can you, a lot of stuff is, but sometimes it's, and a lot of times we might have things that aren't covered under our site plan, but, as a good neighbor, you'll say, yeah, we'll put a fence up to take care of the neighbor, we'll do this and that because it satisfies everybody, but I can understand where the applicant's coming on that one. So myself, in regards to that checklist from Judy, I'd be in agreement with everything that Councilor Martin said, but I personally would go along with the applicant on that one. I understand where Judy's coming from with the Perkins Street situation that just happened, but I don't think we can handicap this applicant on a situation like that because of a current situation that happened somewhere else. And due to the fact that it's not in our site plan regulations, I don't think legally we have right to do so unless they're willing to do it voluntarily without us requesting that. So that was just a concern I had, and I just wanted to make a statement on that part. So I have nothing further at this time. Any of the board members have anything further, or not? What's the request of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the site plan as, with the following conditions, to incorporate the conditions of the memo from senior planner dated June 6th, minus the bullet item regarding the restriction on the resale of the property to any entity beyond a nonprofit that would be required to make a payment in lieu of taxes, and that to be stricken from that memo as a condition. To add the following conditions: applicant will continue to work with the parking department to locate additional parking spaces closer to the site after various construction projects throughout the city have subsided. Continue to work with the city's traffic engineer to further discourage an immediate right turn of vehicles exiting the traffic circle / loop. And then the subject to the compliance with the management plan and transportation plan submitted with this approval, and any amendments to the plan to be approved by DPD.
I'll second the motion.
In the city engineer, well, I believe the city engineer is incorporated into plan subject to final approval, but incorporated in Judy's memo. That's why I was
Okay.
sufficient with that. But that was incorporated into the memo from the senior planner.
I have a concern about, let's see, it's on the second page of the memo where it refers to the handicap spaces. It contains some specific language. Two of those spaces, the applicant shall provide documentation from the parking department demonstrating that 169 parking spaces are available and dedicated to residents of the dormitory. Two of those spaces shall be handicapped accessible. I think that it would be wise to replace that with some more general language about redesigning, relocating the handicap spaces, getting approval from the planning department, because I think that there's a number of options, and what the best direction to go in isn't entirely clear yet.
Yeah, that would be fine with staff.
I'm sorry, Richard, what?
Is that a reasonable amendment? That makes sense,
So, you want to amend that motion then, or move the amendment that you want to, Jeff, are you going to amend something? I'm sorry, I didn't catch all that.
Well, amend the original conditions noting Mr. Boyle's comment and concern regarding the bullet item of
Is this on Judy's memo?
Judy's memo, the senior planner's memo of June 6th, under the transportation access regarding the handicap accessible, two handicap accessible parking spots, and replacing that language with more flexible language for the applicant to work with DPD to provide the adequate handicap accessible parking.
And again, I'll second the motion.
Okay, so, motion was made, and motion was second as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, any opposition? So the motion carries. Good luck and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and staff. Appreciate your time.
Welcome, Counselor, thank you. Good luck with the project, thank you. I can tell them what at home. I get, yeah. And then I'm thinking, you never told me that. Sound familiar?
Great, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we are at. Dominoes.
Okay, moving along, the next matter is 39 Trotting Park Road, a special permit. The Lowell Planning Board will hear a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by Lisa Robinson for a special permit approval to construct a new single-family home under section 5.2.9, which is for the large lots in a single-family zone. For the zoning ordinance, the proposed lot is over 20,000 square feet and has just over 40 feet of frontage. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Matt Waterman with Land Tech Consultants. Here with me tonight is Lisa Robinson, the owner of both 37 and 39 Trotting Park Road. We're the civil engineer of record, prepared the site plan that was in your packets. As stated, the property is located at 39 Trotting Park Road. Trotting Park Road, as most of you know, is an accepted 40-foot public right-of-way. It kind of leads you towards the Tingsboro Lowell Town Forest. There is an existing lot or road behind this that is an undeveloped. It's Uxbridge Road. It's currently undeveloped, and even though there's access, there's some wetland areas back there, and so there's no real access from the back of the property. We're here tonight for a special permit. It's for large SSF lots with reduced frontage, section 5.2.9. Where, as most of you know, this section allows for reduced frontage lots as long as you have 20,000 square foot minimum and a minimum of 40 feet of frontage. We do meet those requirements. This lot was created in 2008. It was done as an A&R. The planning board was endorsed. The plan's been recorded. And Lisa's been paying taxes on this lot as a buildable lot since 2008. She's owned the land since 2004. She lives on the adjacent property, number 37. And currently, as the developed lot is, there's a driveway that splits her house, and then there's a garage that sits on 39. With this proposal, we would demolish that existing garage and construct a new single-family dwelling a little bit further back from the location of the garage. On your plans, it's shown as a hatched line, and this is the existing garage, which is almost in line with the houses on Trotting Park Road. The lot fully complies with zoning. There's a zoning table in the plan where there is that we meet the requirements for the lot area, for the setbacks, for the open space, the floor area ratio, off-street parking. There's the house style that we've proposed. This would be a classic colonial New England style house with a single car garage. So there'd be the ability to park a car inside the garage, and then obviously you could stack 2 or 3 cars in the driveway without being on Trotting Park Road. In working with Lisa and preparing these plans, we've had a lot of back and forth, and Lisa's worked with staff and trying to get some feedback from the staff, both not only from a planning board standpoint, but from a conservation standpoint. There are some wetlands which are shown on this plan as kind of that olive green crescent moon, if you will, to the back upper right of the portion of the lot. And then there's 2 red lines, which are the 50-foot and the 100-foot wetland buffer. So the 100-foot wetland buffer goes through the proposed house with this scheme. Originally, we actually had the house pushed much further back. We had a bigger house. So Lisa, who's in the real estate business has been working very hard, and we've been emailing back different concepts, different size houses, trying to narrow this house up and bring it as far forward as possible. Obviously to get away from the wetlands. But I think one of Lisa's goals was, the lot really narrows up in the front and it's hard to fit a house, a driveway, a turnaround, and all the things that I think that you would expect from today's standards for a house. So in pushing this house back, we were also trying to give a little bit of screening or buffers to the abutters, specifically to the north, to the number 43 Trotting Park. And I think if we're squishing this house up front, you're stacking these houses. So I think this will help reduce the massing along Trotting Park. And it'll give this house just a little bit more separation to those houses, not only her house, but the abutter's house. And we did, and she's only requesting a single car garage. I think most houses that you would see in today's standards would expect a 2-car garage. So there has been a lot of concepts that we've been doing and developing before getting to this point where we are tonight. We do have an example of an elevation. It's a picture on the front. This is Lisa's house next door. This is not the style of the house, but it is going to be consistent, where it is just going to be a classic colonial New England style house. I have a picture to pass around. And then there's a floor plan for this footprint that's shown on this plan. If the board is interested, we have the floor plans. It's a 3-bedroom house, about roughly, I think, no more than 1,600 square feet, and most likely it'll be less than that. And then I know the town planner, and I don't know if it's in your packets, but it was emailed to us tonight. There was a letter from Christine McCall, the assistant town planner. It was kind of a staff report.
We received it, yes, sir. Dated June 3? Yeah.
Yep. And I know that her concerns, I think she agrees with the majority that it meets the regulations where it is the 20,000 square feet and the 40 feet of frontage. And her kind of one question was just to kind of work in trying to either get some more outside of the 100-foot wetland buffer. I think there's a typo in her letter. She calls it a 100-year floodplain. It's not, we're not within the 100-year floodplain.
100-foot
wetland
floodplain?
buffer.
Yeah.
So, under the conservation regulations, you are allowed to develop within 100 feet of the wetlands. You're just under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, I'm sure as most of you know. We don't have any disturbance within 60 feet of the wetlands. So we would maintain the minimum standards that I think the city of Lowell expects, and I know Mass DEP, where it would be no touch within 50 feet. And then we would work, obviously, to pull that house as far forward as possible. There's a couple feet of room. I think Lisa and I were talking before the meeting, and maybe even making the house a little smaller to try and improve that. Lastly, I'll just touch on the special permit components. And I think the benefits when you're considering a special permit, the community needs, obviously, this is a smaller style housing. Lisa would classify as a starter home or an empty nester home, which I think benefits the community. It's not your standard 4-bedroom colonial. And so it's a smaller housing stock, which I think is important for any community, and not just having the large houses. Traffic, I don't believe we'd be impacting traffic. We comply with the parking regulations, and I think with this driveway, I think you could even accommodate, double the parking requirements. There are adequate utilities. Don't expect any impacts to the utilities from just the addition of a small single-family dwelling. All the utilities are available on Trotting Park Road. I think we're consistent with the neighborhood. It would be very consistent with the houses that have been developed since in the last 10 or 15 years along Trotting Park and this road. Environmental issues. We have determined and highlighted the resource areas, and as previously spoken, we've made those points aware, and then we're working to make sure that those are protected and that the buffer zones are maintained and the minimum expectations that the Conservation Commission has will be addressed. And lastly, the fiscal impacts. Lisa's been paying taxes on this as a buildable lot since 2008, so I don't think there's any real fiscal impacts with the addition of one single-family dwelling. We request that the planning board grant a special permit, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Anybody here this evening want to speak in favor of this project? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, anybody want to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Attorney Peter Nicosia, 259 Middlesex Road, Tingsboro, Massachusetts, on behalf of the direct abutters Richard and Doris Carville, who were at 55 Trotting Park Road. If it would be okay with you, Mr. Chairman, if I could approach just to give you a written submission, of which I'm going to highlight
Sure.
only
That's
some
okay,
of the points that you can read in greater detail on your
Sure.
own.
Councilor, did you mean number 43 here?
It's 43, but I think mailing purposes, it's
Okay.
identified as.
Gotcha.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Nicosia? Good. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I know the hour is late, and I'm certainly not going to take up too much of your time going over this in terms of what you can read on your own, but in essence, my clients are the most affected butter here. So if you're facing the property, it's the house to the left. It's identified as 43 on the plan, although I think for mailing purposes, it has a different address. On top of that, I am providing you with support, I mean opposition from the neighbors en masse. Exhibit B to this memorandum has about 7 letters from other neighbors who could not attend tonight, but wanted to voice their opposition to the project. So a lot of the points I'm going to make, a lot of the points that are contained in my memorandum are also reiterated in layman's terms by virtue of a lot of the neighbors in the neighborhood. There are some here tonight, but there are a lot that could not attend. And with regards to my client's immediate concerns that are mimicked throughout those other letters that are in front of you, we're very concerned about the impacts on the neighborhood here. Now, this is not a matter of right development, as you know. This is not an A&R plan, and the fact that they may comply with the minimum dimensional requirements for the bylaw is insufficient. They were supposed to present you with a detailed narrative going through all of your analysis points on whether or not, on a discretionary basis, a special permit can be granted. And those are, in large part, what our concerns are here. At Exhibit A of that memorandum, what I've tried to do is give you a better understanding of what the neighborhood is. Some of you may have driven over there, some of you may have known it. But what I've tried to do is give you the photo version. The first 2 photos are a panoramic view of, at the street level of the neighborhood in general. So that would be photos 1 and 2. Photos 3 and 4 are as we approach the intersection midpoint where this driveway is going to go between the 2 properties. You can see the garage that's going to be raised. There's a tree there. You can see the close proximity that it has to my client's house. We then take a reverse view. You can see it from the backyard. And then, most importantly, in the last 2 photos, I think it's photos 5 and 6 or 6 and 7, you can see the dramatic drop down in grade in the back of this property, as well as the lush vegetated state of the wetlands and habitat area which exists in the backside of this property. So I'm trying to personalize it a little bit more for you above and beyond what the site plan shows in terms of generic analysis, so you can see what the actual existing conditions are there. And the reason why I've done that is because one of the key characteristics of your analysis is character in the neighborhood. Now, this neighborhood is street abutting, houses that are very close to the street, all in a row, neatly separated. It's a fairly quaint neighborhood. There is none of this front-to-back development which is being proposed in this application. As a matter of fact, in my driving of this entire road, the entire property behind the front row of houses on the street has this precipitous drop-off into what, in essence, turns into conservation land and ultimately state forest. It is a sophisticated drainage and habitat system. It connects to the culvert system on the streets. And it is essentially unbuildable back there, unusable in its current state. And that precipitous drop-off parallels the entire Trotting Park Road as you go down behind all of the houses. This would be the only instance on that road that I saw where you now have a house that sort of tucks itself in between this normal neighborhood character and hides itself into these wetlands areas. It's completely out of character for the neighborhood. Now, you put that driveway in close proximity to my client's home, it's going to have significant impacts on the serene nature that exists there today. You now have an active driveway for ingress and egress of vehicles. We think it's going to have dramatic impact on privacy, use and enjoyment, value, and other issues of that nature. And we have some legal issues that we're concerned with. Now, I understand that the applicant is skilled in real estate, looking to get the biggest bang for the buck on their parcel. But part of the submission at Exhibit C is these prior A&R approvals. This is the third time this applicant's coming in here looking to carve up her property. First two times I can see the legitimacy of doing that. The third time is just simply too much. You're trying to squeeze an extra slice of pizza here that shouldn't be available. I attach the A&R approval plans from 2005 and 2008 and the relevant bylaws that apply to that. And what is noteworthy is that the frontage that is being used in this particular lot was frontage that was part of the calculations in these prior A&R approvals. I don't know what the board's analysis was at the time in 2005 and 2008. My understanding was it was a 90-foot frontage requirement at the time. But now she's taking the same frontage and looking to carve it up yet again. So I have a concern with the use of frontage, which has already been factored into two prior board decisions dividing up this property. But my legal concerns, and granted this is a lawyer's view of an engineer's plan, and we haven't had an opportunity to have our own peer review engineer look at this, and we're going to. I think the proposed plan runs afoul of 5.1.2 of your zoning ordinance, which says that 90% of the lot area for these types of lots can't be wetlands or used as part of a drainage system. That's a big concern here, because if you go out to the back of the site and you look at the wetlands flaggings for the 100-foot buffer and the 50-foot buffer, it looks like a good majority of this site seems to at least fall within these conservation categories. And when I went to look at the culvert systems that connect to this area, down in the back is all BVW. Running the entire length of Trotting Park Road is a drainage system behind these properties on this precipitous drop-off that I'm told, and you'll see in the letters from the neighbors, is instrumental in trying to avoid, flooding of their properties. So at least in terms of what I've seen submitted to the board, I don't see 90% of lot area not being some form of wetlands or some form of land used for drainage system that exists back there connected to the culvert. So I'm concerned that you have a non-compliant lot in that regard. 5.1.10 indicates that the width of the entire lot has to be 80% of the frontage at all points, and there can be no grade in excess of 8%. Well, if you look at photo number 6 to Exhibit A, which is the second to last photo on my submission, and there's a hand mark on the bottom indicating 6. If you look at that, existing conditions, I mean, once again, I'm no engineer, but that to me depicts something far more substantial than an 8% grade, as the driveway is going to come in from the street level and dump down into this lot, this house, which is essentially going to be in this ravine back there. I see nothing in front of me today as part of this submission to show that the lot width is 80% of the frontage, nor do I see anything that shows me that there isn't grading in excess of 8%. So that's a concern over a non-compliant aspect of the lot. Notwithstanding that it has frontage in the square footage, they also have to comply with these other terms of the bylaws, and I don't believe that they do. And once again, I'm going to have a peer review engineer drill down on this a little bit stronger. We have significant environmental concerns. I mean, granted, a lot of the discussion is fodder for the Conservation Commission, and I understand that. I know the applicant's engineer well in municipal arenas. And, you know, I'm presuming that Concom is a stormwater management permit issuing authority here for the city and is going to look at the impacts on these buffer zones. But your special permitting regulation says that you also have concurrent jurisdiction to consider environmental impacts as part of the special permit analysis. Dropping a house in the middle of the buffer zone, smack dab in the middle of the drainage system for the entire neighborhood is very concerning from a drainage calculation and a stormwater management issue. I see no drainage calculations presented and no stormwater management report presented, and I understand that those things are also going to be presented at the Conservation Commission, but I think it's a relevant analysis for this board as well. We're also concerned with what the impact is going to be on the environment. Like I said, it's lush BVW back there. My client also believes that there may be some natural habitats. I think the analysis of the situation has to go one step further. I think a MESA application should be filed with National Heritage or the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife to determine whether there's habitats down there that need to be dealt with. None of that is before this board. And once again, your literal requirements of the special permitting application package is that you've got to have a narrative and plan support to address all these types of issues. And all you have in front of you is a skeletonized, handwritten special permit application in this site plan. So I think these are issues that need to be drilled down in greater detail. So what I've tried to do is, you know, explain all of those points in greater terms in the submission that I've given you, give you some supporting documentation to take up those issues, show you that the neighborhood en masse is opposed to this, and hoping that you're going to give it the due consideration that it warrants, because this is going to have a substantial negative impact. I think it's a detrimental trend to set. And there's a reason why you're conferred discretionary authority in these types of things, because there are lots that typically aren't capable of development because they don't have the minimum dimensional requirements. I could see if, you know, this were a situation where that's the character of the neighborhood, but it's not here. You're looking to just sandwich a house completely out of place in the middle of a ravine, and we don't think that that is appropriate. So we are going to hire a peer review engineer to take a look at this and you know, make some of a more reasoned assessment of some of these points that I've raised, take a look at some of the more environmental issues, and hope to be able to submit our initial opposition to this. So thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I'll do my best to try to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else want to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name is Diana Archibald. I live at 85 Trotting Park Road. And my husband couldn't be here tonight. He had another meeting, but he also wrote a letter. So I'll summarize a little bit of that, and I'd be happy to give you a copy of that if you wish. So we came to Lowell in 1999, and we lived in the Highlands for a while. And you know, the houses are very close together and such. But when we looked to buy, we decided that we were going to buy out in this lovely neighborhood. And one of the most important things about it is the character of that neighborhood, where we have just a row of houses, and you've got the conservation land behind, the wetlands, the state forest, a 1/10 of a mile from our house, the first opening to the state forest. It's a wonderful neighborhood. And our family objects very strongly to ruining that by inserting this home, disturbing the natural environment, disturbing the neighborhood, adding to traffic, and multiple reasons. So a couple of other things I want to bring up. There is an actually very sharp corner, if you know Trotting Park, as you come around. And I can't tell you how many times we've had close calls. Every week it seems like there's close calls, especially when people are putting their garbage cans out. Adding another driveway coming in, another set, frankly, of garbage cans that people have to avoid so close to that dangerous corner is, I think, a safety hazard. And there are a lot of children around in the neighborhood, new families that have moved in recently, very close to that. And it's, I think, destroying the character of that open land. In addition, the property in question in this odd shape is obviously, getting around the zoning laws and intended to, that the original zoning laws that were intended to preserve the property values of the neighboring houses and the character of the land. And we pay taxes too, and we have a third of our property that's conservation land. And we don't build on it, and we don't touch it, and we respect that, and we appreciate the fact that that's there. And I think that trying to get around that to make a buck is problematic. The other thing I'd like to bring up, you all knew what happened at the storm last night, right? That big torrential rain coming down. And I looked out our upstairs window, and I looked at Trotting Park Road. It was a river, as it is all the time when we get a lot of rain. And this is going to add to the problem of the runoff and cause flooding problems. Across the street, there's a parking lot for the Nazarene Church. You know the spot, right? So what happens when the rain comes and it washes away the stuff that's been left behind by the cars, right? And where does that go? It goes down into this basin, basically. That vegetation, undisturbed, is what filters that. And that's what's protecting our water system, because we get our water from the Merrimack, so it only makes good sense. But it's right there, right across the street, so that water coming down from the parking lot needs to be filtered through the land, and we're going to disturb it. I think that there's lots of reasons, and our neighbor Dick's attorney has explained some of them. I won't go into that as well. But based on the character of the neighborhood, the environmental concerns, safety concerns from that corner and adding to the traffic, we are definitely not in favor of you making this variance, exception. And I think that this property goes against the City of Lowell's zoning book in several aspects, and certainly in spirit. And we hope that you will not grant that special permit. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Turner Netherton. It's my mom. I live at 85 Trotting Park Road as well. I'm 18 years old, and I've lived at 85 Trotting Park Road since 2005, I think, with my parents. I'm against the variance being granted because of the impact it would have on the current ecosystems and the larger consequences making these exceptions has on the City of Lowell and all towns downstream of the Merrimack. I've grown up playing in the forest and the wetlands, catching snakes and salamanders and watching deer and foxes and the like. Right in my backyard. And I understand that wetlands are a threatened ecosystem. Even a small change in the environment has big effects. By introducing a house with a downward sloped driveway and months of construction, potentially a lot of landscaping, one runs the risk of disrupting this delicate balance. It's imperative that we protect our environment, and these rules are here for a reason. If our governing bodies make such exceptions cumulatively, they can compound and become severely detrimental. Furthermore, I'm a rower, and for the past 4 years, I've spent 6 days a week on the Merrimack from March until November. I'm keenly aware of the water quality, which has thankfully been improved over the last couple decades. And I just like to say, let's not go backwards on that. So I ask again that you did not approve this variance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else want to speak? Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, at this point in time, I'll turn it over to any board members have any comments. Mr. Lockhart, can I start with you?
Interesting. I just really, just from a site plan look at this, how long is your proposed driveway here? 104 feet. You know, generally speaking, I know you got a little bump out here on the left, but generally speaking, I don't like to see stacked parking.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest maybe reconfiguring that to accommodate that. That's all I have right now.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Snetsky, you have any questions, comments?
Not sure where we
At first blush, when I went up and looked at the site, it looked like it was kind of cut and dry. It seems now that there are other issues that perhaps, weren't as evident, that concerns that people have. In terms of meeting the regulations, I believe it does, and that many of the environmental issues would have to be resolved by the Conservation Commission. So, strictly from the zoning and, in terms of our approval, I think that perhaps this is met and the environmental issues could be dealt with at the next level.
Thank you. Mr. Malovich, you have any questions or comments? Bob?
Yeah, Joe, the opponent's letter indicates that the technical submission requirements have not been met. Have you looked this over and determined that they have or have not?
I have not myself, but city staff did not reject the application back to the applicant as it's before you here tonight. And if you'd like them to submit anything further, such as a written narrative or anything like that, could be more than happy to have them do that.
Chair, if I may, Lisa is a homeowner on Trotting Park Road, and she worked with the staff. We were part of the process in preparing the plan, but the submission and all that was done by Lisa as a homeowner and a resident of the city of Lowell, and working with the staff. And so it was her understanding that she had a complete application.
I agree that this is probably technically compliant with the zoning, with the subdivision or zoning code, but except for the little bump turnaround, I believe that all parking and driveway have to be 3 feet from the property line. And on the plan, it doesn't look like.
No, it's less than 3 feet, definitely. And we can make that adjustment.
And I don't know whether, I suppose the existing house has, that does not meet anything, but it may be pre-existing condition. But you are disturbing that. So I don't know whether or not that that's a building department issue. Never mind. It looks like it's technically compliant. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Boyle?
I think that the Attorney Nicosia raised a question that's real in my mind about whether 90%, about section 5.1.2, paragraph 2. At least 90% of the lot area used to satisfy the minimum lot area per dwelling unit or minimum lot area requirements must not be designated wetlands, used for a subsurface drainage system, or have a grade in excess of 8%. I think it's an open question whether there are 18,000 square feet on this lot other than the wetlands in the top right corner, and area is grade greater than 8%. They need to have 20,000 square feet to fulfill the lot area of this section, of the 40-foot frontage section. Your lot area needs to be 20,000, so that needs 18,000 square feet. Looking at this wetland delineation as shown, I think it's an open question whether whether it meets that requirement. The other point I have is that, is there a reason why you chose to have the driveway follow the lot line with the abutter at number 43/55 instead of having it pushed further south towards the existing dwelling and towards the new lot line you're drawing?
We did. We actually put a lot of consideration in that and working not only from placement of the house, but the style of the house, the location of the garage, and the living space. And so the thought was that we would put the garage on the abutter side, which is kind of a less use area of your house on a daily basis. You know, obviously you access your garage to get in the house, but once you're in your house, you kind of move to your living spaces, which would be towards the back right, which would be away from the house. And so we have a floor plan, and I don't know if anyone wants to, if it helps to see, but we had the garage in the front left, and then, you know, the living space and kitchens, you know, towards that back right, getting away from the butters, with the idea that, you know, we would preserve their privacy, and then also, you know, the future Lisa's house, her privacy as well. So we specifically put that garage there, not to put the pavement on top of the property line or anything, but just thinking the daily activities in that house.
Right, okay. So some thought was put into that, okay. Your site plan here shows your driveway cutting through a stone wall. I was out there. I don't recall seeing that stone wall.
Another one in the front, is that removed?
Is it an old fieldstone wall, New England? No?
No, it's at the end of, I'm sorry. It's at the end of the driveway where I have mulch, and it's just a nice rock setting for additional flowers and plantings.
Okay, so it's more like,
Just a stop.
just a few, okay.
And we can confirm that too, because some of that might have been from the 2008 A&R plan.
Yeah.
So I can field check that and see if there is a stone wall there still or not.
Okay, I see, like, behind existing dwelling number 37, there's existing stone wall. There's a notation. It's not like, the one up by the street isn't like that? And no, it doesn't have that note, existing stone wall?
No, there's no stone wall. There's no stone wall in the
I
front.
think that stone wall has been removed
Okay.
over the years, in the past 10 years.
Okay. Okay, those were my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fischett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe, just looking at a couple of the sections that were cited in the zoning code, section 5.1.10, lot width. Each lot shall have a width of no less than 80% of the required frontage at all points of the lot. So that sliver in the back to get us to our square footage, that does not comply, is that correct?
Well, even the front part doesn't comply, being at 40 feet, 80%. the required frontage in the district generally being 90 feet, you need 80% of that being 72 feet. So the other section that they applied under 5.2.9, I guess in theory already takes care of that section, because it's already saying that you can have 40 feet of frontage so long as you have 20,000 square feet.
So, and so we wouldn't apply then that calculation to the 40 feet?
It would be on a 10,000 square foot lot. Not an
So you're asking if you waive it down to 40, if then you would have to have something be at least 32 feet.
Correct.
Typically, we measure that distance from sideline to sideline.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about the point, I guess it would be in the southeastern corner, I
Correct.
guess. That would be a side property line to a rear property line, so you'd have to look at more so the side property line over here to the side property line over here. In fact, this comes to a point here, I mean, it's going out this way, so it's not getting any less. You follow what I'm saying?
Interesting.
It would seem to leave Lot A without that width in the back corner.
Right. Lot A would be an example where it eventually comes to a point, but the lot B is already in existence based on the A&R plan that was endorsed in 2008. So it's not like it's a new subdivision creating a new non-conformity on Lot A.
A existed before, okay.
And Lot A existed before that regulation, because that regulation.
Before the regulation was changed to extend to the area behind the house.
Right.
Right, okay.
All right, so that we're not creating that odd shape.
Correct.
So that does comply with that section, as DPD would see that, okay.
And we're not measuring our frontage from Uxbridge Road either, so it specifically states where we're measuring our frontage, which is from Trotting Park. We were assuming that that frontage requirement was the 40 feet, which is allowed as long as you have the 20,000 square foot in accordance with your special permit guidelines.
And then the 8% grade, has anybody looked at that as far as, and that, even when you look at that from Trotting Park Road, that drops right off.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, that Mr. Boyle brought up, that it's something that we haven't received any information on, any kind of calculation.
Right.
So that could be valuable to receive, to see whether or not a variance would be required or not.
Yeah, and we can get you that information.
I think that would be an important component in seeing if that complies. And I will say to Counselor, when you refer to the character of the neighborhood, I would just implore you to drive further down on Trotting Park Road and look on the left-hand side, because it's been an issue that it's kind of the way things develop. Go look at Frida Lane as well, but it's not the same road, but, and I can get into prior approvals from the past. But actually, that's probably one of the worst examples of homes being set behind other homes. It's all along Trotting Park Road, all along on the left-hand side, all along when you're heading to the state forest. So I know those newer homes in the front, certainly that's not what you're seeing. But take a look at all those splits. I live in the neighborhood, so I know, I'll just tell you to just take a walk. Take a walk. And just look at all the split-level homes that have homes that are in the back. Matter of fact, they share driveways and they service other homes. So certainly, it's how that road has developed over the years. Certainly, it's a fairly large lot, but obviously, with the proximity of both homes, even having this available to someone in our zoning ordinance, we could debate that, but it is available. It is available to an applicant, and it's up to us to review that and see the applicability of it. I do think, I'm not prepared to make a decision this evening. I think we need to have information regarding the actual 8% slope, and as well as the percentage of I wouldn't say wetlands, but drainage. And I guess really identifying what is the drainage area. That is quite a drop on that piece of property. Just a question to the applicant, are you looking to put is it a grinder pump that you're going to put into the sewage? Does the sewage go down there at this point? I'm assuming it does, right?
Yes, I believe
Okay,
it does.
'cause
It goes in front of.
I think
Trotting
Cannon
Park.
Gate is one of the last places where I think there's still homes on, maybe some septic systems back there, but,
No, and we have sewer manholes out on the road, and we can show that connection. We haven't made that connection with this. We haven't developed the utilities that far, but.
right.
It would definitely be either, obviously, gravity or a pump system. but-
Sure.
It's actually in my yard, where it drains through,
Is it, yeah,
to my additional 7,000 square feet of land up the street.
okay.
That's mine.
Yeah.
So I obviously want to have my wetlands, I want the conservation.
Right.
It's probably why my land is remaining wet, because of the way the drainage from particular neighbors. But I did make sure that when I built Mr. Carvel's house, I built it. And when I built 39 Trotting Park Road, they both have very deep slopes. We made sure that they were not disturbing anything in the back, which is exactly what I would do with getting rid of this ugly garage. Doing the same thing.
I don't think the garage that is that unattractive, by the way, but
It's
I will
old.
just say that.
Yeah, it's old, it does. It look a
It's
lot
keeping
better.
with the home.
Lowell, we
It's
like
ke-
old.
It's keeping with the home that's there.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, no, I would certainly want to make sure that we're in compliance with that. Whenever we're giving any kind of relief on something like that under that special permit, I think that's important. And I would like to see a more robust narrative that complies with the special permit. How you view that as fitting the neighborhood character, and I mean, the exact requirements, it's right in there, spells it out, and really would want to see that. But as this is submitted, I would not be prepared to make any kind of a decision on this this evening. I think there's some question as to the compliance with I believe it was at section 5.1.2. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. So the only question I think that Bob brought up, when you're coming in here, it looks like you're gonna try to turn to the left and then come back, but now you said you're gonna wipe that part out? Is that like a T shape that goes to the left of their property on the gray in the driveway? You come up and it looks like,
The turnaround.
The turnaround needs to go the other way.
when you go straight
Yeah,
up,
currently we have the driveway, so you would pull in and you'd pull into your garage, and then to back out, you would go towards the abutter to the north.
Turn around, yeah.
so what's that, does that go right to the property line?
Yeah, that goes within about a foot, it's about a foot off the property line, I believe. So we would have to revise that turnaround to either be in the front yard or to be on the south side of the driveway.
All right. All right. 'Cause I think, for the special permit, I think, the applicant has the right to come in and request a special permit, because under that section, it does have the 40 feet on the front, and it has a 20,000, over 20,000 square feet of land. And the special permit is strictly required that you need 4 to 5 votes to approve it, so I think they have the right to come in and request a relief. And I think also, that was brought out by staff, and by Christine, was, whether or not they have to go to conservation or not, depends on, I think she threw that out there for the applicant to be aware that it may fall into the conservation area. And I think that even that section in the code also mentions that it may have to go before the conservation as well. I think it was one of the code ones I was referring to, or if not the last one that, yeah, the one with the construction near the wetlands indicates that no building permit construction within that unless it's gone before the conservation. Should be,
Yeah.
I mean, 5.23 goes on, it says, "No new building or structure shall be constructed, nor shall any existing building or structure be enlarge within 50 feet of existing wetland or body of water except for a special permit, which we can grant and within the express written approval of the Lowell Conservation Commission, so,
Yeah, but we're not within 50 feet.
well, after public hearing. Then talk about the septic and, so I think, I mean, the narrative, I may meet the letter of the law as far as what the, for the narrative, what was addressed by Ms. Robinson. I think so therefore, when staff took the application, as they said, they had the letter, some are more in detail, some are shorter in detail, but I think it may meet the extent of the application that there was a narrative with the site plan. So I think it may be sufficient to be in front of us. You know, what we request is obviously up to each and every one of the board members with how they feel in the matter. But I think they do have the right to come in and request a relief because it is as proposed under that chapter and section as it has been required from, as indicated, for the 5.29. So I think they have the right to come in and request the relief. It's up to us to grant it or deny it. So I'm not sure if the board wants to vote on it tonight. I know Mr. Fischett felt comfortable that he had more information. I'm not sure what the rest of the board members feel, and I'd be willing to listen to what their concerns are in regards to
I
that matter.
concur with Mr. Fischett. I think we need a bit more information. I'm not comfortable voting either.
Mr. Chairman, just again, to specify in section 5.1.2, second item, at least 90% of the lot area used to satisfy the minimum lot area per dwelling unit. A minimum lot area requirements must be must not be designated wetlands used for a surface drainage system or have grade in excess of 8%. And I believe
The 8% is a concern, yeah.
Joe had indicated that there hasn't really been any information regarding that, and I think I think this lot, as you look at it just visually, certainly raises some concern that we want to make sure that that's.
I mean, you can see the slope, you just don't know what the grade is. I mean, you can speculate, but
Right,
obviously.
exactly.
Right,
No,
yeah.
no.
Yes, have you got the microphone, please? Sure.
Thank you. You know, I've pointed out several items. Two are strict lot compliance issues, of which Member Fischett has highlighted in his most recent comment. So I don't, at some points in some of the members' comments, I'm concerned that it's a little more of an A&R type analysis than it is this more broad spectrum special permit analysis. I mean, granted, they have standing to come in or ask for this because they have frontage and they have square footage. I just want to reemphasize the point that your analysis doesn't end there. It's far more expansive.
Is this a special permit?
Yes, and I've cut and pasted the literal requirements of your special permit regulations into my memorandum, where the burden is on this applicant in great detail to show compliance with all of these areas, and you have all of the questions that need to be answered, none of which, from my vantage point, are answered to the degree that should be required. So I am hopeful that you will continue it, require the applicant to supplement the information, allow us to supplement our opposition, because I am going to have an engineer look at this and also weigh in on the calcs of the 90% as well as the 8% issue, because I don't think they can comply with either one of those. And I'd ask that you defer a vote until such time as further information comes in. Thank you.
Yep, I'll let you respond to that, sir, if you want to.
Nope, I agree. We hope we would request that the board allow us to continue and get you the additional information. There's a lot of information presented tonight, a lot to digest, and
How much time do you think you'd need to get, I mean, we can go out 2 weeks, or we can go out to approximately a month to the July meeting?
I think probably a month, just 2 weeks. Summertime is coming upon us, and weeks go by faster in the summertime.
Yeah, especially when it's tough to try to get people to.
Yeah.
I mean, just making sure that I'm just trying to look at our calendar here.
July 18th.
Yeah, just the third, next Monday.
The July meeting's July 18th.
July, okay, yep, July 18th. Does someone want to make a motion to that effect for the continuance then, Mr. Fischett?
I'll make a motion that
I know that both of you indicated you'd like to see more information.
Yeah, 39 Trotting Park Road project be continued until July 18th.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes. Motion, any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's right at the mouth of the driveway.
Is that the fire plug?
Good luck. Thank you.
Amazing to move that. Very expensive.
Okay, moving along on the agenda, do we have any
Disruptive.
further comments from any of the board members, for any of the boards they're on?
The Historic Board, we're meeting a week from tonight on the 13th we have two public hearings, one on One Merrimack Plaza, the dormitory, that I know Steve has been working on very closely, and the second one is kind of an interesting and unusual one. The Greek church over on Lewis Street, Trinity, I forget the official name of it. There, we have the Historic Board has a standard. Any construction within an historic district or any demolition within an historic district, you have to come to the board to present a plan, and they are constructing they're installing an elevator in the church and going up, somehow affecting the exterior. So that's the second public hearing. It's just kind of unusual. Be interesting to see what they're doing.
Thank you.
That's all.
Any other board members have any comments or follow-up? No? Joe, anything from staff? I know we've been getting a monthly update, a weekly.
Yeah, we got one today.
We got one today for next meeting, so.
Yeah, I just have a handout for you for a pre-application for next meeting. It's a smaller subdivision, looking to build 2 additional houses over off of Stratham Street, so right near the intersection of Stratham and Morton, which I think is generally close to the Pine School.
Any further comments?
Mr. Chairman, I had something following up from last time. The Pawtucket Boulevard zoning proposal, the Saab Tower, the applicant is doing as we requested last time and going in for a variance request instead of the zoning map amendment. I'm wondering if it would be appropriate for this body to send a letter. It seems that it's possible that our action and our intent would be easy to misinterpret as opposition to the project or something, and perhaps sending a letter, of our findings that we feel it would be preferentially handled through the variance procedure, even a recommendation or some sort of letter of support from this body to make our intention clear might be appropriate.
Yeah, we can make a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals for that matter. I did have a conversation with Attorney Flood today in regards to the matter that was coming before the board. Because he called me and thought the only thing that his applicant needed at Domino's was the easement. I told him it was a little more than that we were waiting for the law department. And he did tell me that they did file the application to go before the ZBA. I don't know if he got a date yet, Joe. He didn't mention that to me, but he said they did file.
Yeah, I think we might be on for June 27th, but I'd have to double check.
Yeah, he just indicated that they did file to go on there. I said, obviously there was a lot of discussion about, we thought that was the best relief. But if you want to make a motion that we recommend, regards to putting for variance instead of the zoning, you can make that recommendation, and if the board, if that motion carried, then we can send a letter to the ZBA indicating that we recommended that the variance be allowed, and for whichever reasons. It sounded like that time was, at least the neighbors knew exactly what was getting in that neighborhood.
Yep.
And like, even the neighbors at the time said they would be there and they'd show up on site, and Mr. Flood said, I hope they do continue to show up on site for the meeting, speak in favor, like I indicated that night, but.
Well, I would phrase it as we felt it was less detrimental
Yep.
to the neighborhood to allow a variance for 3 parking or 4 parking spots, rather than rezone a section of that site further into the residential neighborhood, and I think that's how I would
communicate that.
It seems to me that I don't think we want to issue a recommendation of approval on something we haven't even seen a plan for. So what we could either do is, I know we don't, as a matter of course, look at all the ZBA applications anymore, but perhaps we could look at this one on the 20th in order to issue a recommendation, or
I think it would
could
be
issue something more general, like Jerry was saying, stating our procedural opinion that our vote was not intended to represent opposition to the project, but the opinion that it would be better handled through a variance which allowed for conditions.
Yeah, like say something, like for example, like we allowed the applicant to withdraw the motion for the zone change because they seek alternative to do a variance, which we thought would be, would be a better recourse for the neighborhood to, something like that, Because after discussion with the neighbors present and the applicant present, the resolution, they came to understanding that people would be more in favor of a variance going forward than a zone change, because on the variance, they would know what type of land use they would get, where the zoning change they don't.
Right. Right.
Because like you say, when we put the zoning change in, you list everything under that zoning chart. On the variance, it's just whether they're gonna put if you do it for those parking spaces or not. So I think that's what made most people feel more comfortable. And I think, they say, so you know exactly what the use is gonna be instead of a zoning change. So we could just.
Yeah, and if the board would like, we could try to just draft up something briefly and either send it around or.
Yes, and if you have any questions, we come. But basically, as a result of the zone, we allowed the applicant to withdraw withdraw the zoning request due to the fact that after the discussion with the planning board, the neighbors present, the alternative was to seek a variance, which we thought would be better.
Sure.
Which people were in agreement, it seemed to be better land use, better way to handle the land use as requested by all parties, whatever, Because it really limits what they requested instead of just opening up that whole zoning.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
right.
Because the zoning opens up all sorts of things where the variance limits it to exactly what the guy's looking for. Because we know that you can give it to them, they can sell the building, come in, build everything up again. Where, with this variance, if they get it, it wouldn't.
And they were looking to drive that further into the residential neighborhood.
Right.
And just,
Yeah, we're just to park a couple of cars, it sounds like people are more in favor.
Yeah.
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 Because, so if something like that, Joe, if you want to circulate that to us, and we can send our comments on this.
Sure.
Sure.
We can
So
do
whenever
that.
that comes in, but yeah, I know they did file for that, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else further from any of the board members?
I have nothing.
If not, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good night.